Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Noir Intellect. I'm your host, Victor Blackwood. If you enjoy mysteries, hidden clues, and uncovering the truth, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Leave it in the comments below. Now, keep your eyes open and your mind sharp. The mystery begins now. Chapter 1. 40 minutes too soon. At 11:20 on a Tuesday morning, a man arrived at an office where he was not expected, carrying a sealed envelope that he claimed was more important than his reputation. That was his first mistake. His second was assuming that because the appointment card in his hand looked genuine, it had to tell the truth. His third was walking into a private detective's life before lunch. I was in the outer office of the Manhattan accounting firm of Bellamy, Reed and Price when the elevator doors opened and Arthur Bell stepped out. I knew his name because I had been waiting for him. I did not know then that I had been waiting for the wrong version of him. He was a respectable-looking businessman in his late 50s, perhaps 60, with silver hair neatly parted on the left, a dark grey suit that had cost enough to discourage criticism, and the careful expression of a man accustomed to deciding what other people ought to believe. He carried a black leather portfolio under his left arm and a sealed cream-colored envelope in his right hand. He approached the receptionist. "I have an appointment with Mr. Reed." The receptionist looked at the clock. "So early, 40 minutes. She glanced toward me. I had been sitting in the corner with a newspaper folded open across my knees, waiting for the appointment I had come to investigate. Bell noticed me. "Is Mr. Reed expecting me?" "No," the receptionist said. He smiled. "Of course he is. That was when I decided I disliked him. Not because he was early. People are early for all sorts of reasons. Anxiety, vanity, bad traffic, fear of elevators, excessive respect for clocks. 40 minutes is excessive, but it is not criminal. What interested me was his certainty. He had not asked whether Jonathan Reed was ready. He had assumed Reed must be ready because he himself had arrived. The receptionist checked her appointment book. "Mr. Bell, your meeting is at noon." "Correct. It is 11:20. I know, so Mr. Reed is not expecting you yet." Bell's expression changed by perhaps 1 degree. "He summoned me." The receptionist hesitated. "I don't think so." "He did." I folded the newspaper. Bell turned toward me. I gave him a polite smile. "Perhaps Mr. Reed has developed a new definition of noon." He didn't smile. "Who are you?" "Archie Goodwin." That meant nothing to him. I stood. "Private investigator." That meant something. His eyes moved briefly to the envelope, then back to me. "Are you employed by Mr. Reed?" "No." "Then this doesn't concern you at the moment." "It concerns me enormously." The receptionist looked relieved that someone else had inherited the problem. Bell sighed. "I was invited here." "By Mr. Reed?" "Yes." "At 11:20? He hesitated. "No." "Then what time?" He reached inside his coat and produced a card. 11:20. I took it. It was a cream-colored appointment card bearing the name of Jonathan Reed in dark blue type. At the bottom in handwriting appeared, "Arthur Bell, Tuesday, 11:20 a.m. Come alone. Bring the documents." The handwriting looked authoritative. The signature beneath it was unmistakably Jonathan Reed's. I studied it. Bell watched me. "Well, I'll have to compare it." "With what?" "Something genuine." He stiffened. "You think it's forged." "I didn't say that. You implied it." "I implied nothing," I observed. That was my second mistake. Never tell a businessman you are observing him. He immediately assumes you are accusing him. He extended his hand. "Give it back." I did. He slipped the card into his wallet. "I'll wait for Mr. Reed." "Yes." I checked the office clock. "He won't be here until 11:50. Bell looked at me sharply. "How do you know?" "Because I spoke with his secretary." "She told you?" "Yes." He frowned. That was the first time I saw something other than irritation in his expression. Fear, very slight, gone quickly, but it was there. I made a mental note. Fear is one of the few honest expressions people have. The receptionist offered him a chair. He refused it. "I'll wait." I sat again. The next 20 minutes passed with the special discomfort produced when 3 people are pretending not to watch one another. At 11:32, Bell looked at his watch. At 11:37, he checked the hallway. At 11:40, He asked whether there was another entrance to the office. At 11:43, he said, I may have to leave. I folded my newspaper. You came 40 minutes early because you were summoned. Yes. You carried documents. Yes. You insisted on seeing Reed personally. Yes. And now you may leave before he arrives. He stared at me. Do you always interrogate strangers? Only when they look nervous. I am not nervous. Good, I smiled. Then stay. He sat. That was when the receptionist received a telephone call. She listened. Then she covered the receiver. Mr. Bell, Mr. Reed's secretary wants to know whether you are here. Bell stood immediately. Yes. The receptionist returned to the call. Yes, he's here. A pause. Then she looked at Bell. Mr. Reed says he did not summon you. Silence. Bell's face went white. Not frightened now. Angry. He reached for his portfolio. Then someone is lying. The receptionist ended the call. I said that narrows it down. He ignored me. I have an appointment card bearing Mr. Reed's handwriting. That's what makes it interesting. I was instructed to bring documents. What documents? His hand tightened around the portfolio. Business documents. That narrows it down less. He looked at me. You are enjoying this. Not yet. He took out the card again. I held out my hand. He hesitated, then gave it to me. I looked more closely. The card itself was heavy cream stock. The printing was genuine. Jonathan Reed's name was embossed at the top. The handwriting beneath appeared genuine too, but the ink had a peculiarity. The numerals in 1120 were darker than the rest. I tilted the card. The paper surface around the time showed a faint disturbance. I touched it with my fingertip. Where did you get this? It was mailed. By whom? Mr. Reed. When? Yesterday. Seth. He produced it. No return address.
Postmark from Manhattan.
I examined the sealed, untouched. Where did you receive it? My office. Who handles your mail? My secretary. Could anyone else have access? Certainly. Who? He frowned. That is irrelevant. No. He looked toward the receptionist. I'll speak with Mr. Reed. He won't be here for another 7 minutes. I'll wait. He sat again. I looked at the card. Something bothered me. Not the handwriting. Not the paper. The appointment itself. If Reed had intended to meet Bell at 11:20, why was the appointment book marked noon? If Reed had not intended to meet Bell at 11:20, why did the card exist? And if someone had altered the card, why had they taken the trouble to reproduce Reed's handwriting perfectly? I knew someone who enjoyed that sort of question. I stepped into the hallway and telephoned the brownstone. Wolfe answered on the second ring. Yes, it's Archie. I know, I have a problem. That is why you are calling. I'm at Bellamy, Reed and Price. Why? I'm investigating a man named Jonathan Reed. I did not authorize an investigation. No. Then why are you conducting one? Because somebody appears to have altered an appointment. There was a pause. Explain. He asked 3 questions. What time was the appointment? Noon. What time does the card say? 11:20. Who possesses the card? Arthur Bell. Bring him. I looked through the glass partition. Bell sat rigidly with his portfolio across his knees. He may not agree. Then persuade him. You sound interested. I am. In the appointment? No. What then? The 40 minutes. He hung up. That was Wolfe. He could make a telephone call shorter than most people made a greeting. I returned to the waiting room. Bell looked up. Your employer? Yes. What did he say? He wants to see you. Now at the brownstone. Why? He finds your 40 minutes interesting. Bell stared at me. Then at the appointment card. Then at the sealed envelope. I'll come. That answer came too quickly. I stood. Good. We left the office at 11:48. Jonathan Reed arrived 3 minutes later. He was a tall, narrow man in his early 50s with a controlled manner and the slightly tired appearance of someone who had spent too many years managing other people's expectations. He saw Bell in the lobby. Stopped. Arthur? Bell turned. Jonathan. Reed looked genuinely surprised. You came. You invited me. I did not. Bell removed the appointment card. Reed took one glance. That's my handwriting. I know. I didn't write that time. The card says 11:20. It should say noon. Reed looked at me. Who are you? Archie Goodwin, private investigator. Yes. Why? Because this morning somebody became interested in your handwriting. Reed looked back at Bell. What documents did you bring? Bell's hand tightened around the portfolio. Nothing that concerns you. Reed's expression hardened. Then why were you summoned? Bell did not answer. I stepped between them. Mr. Reed, do you know why Mr. Bell was supposed to meet you? At noon, yes. Business. What business? An acquisition, Bell interrupted. That isn't the whole reason. Reed turned sharply. Then perhaps you should tell him. I came because you asked me to bring the file. I did not. You did? I didn't. I raised a hand. Before this becomes a courtroom, let's move somewhere quieter. Reed looked at me. Where? My employer's office. Bell glanced at him. You know Wolfe? Everyone knows Wolfe. That was true enough. 20 minutes later, the four of us were in Wolfe's office. Fritz had already prepared lunch. Wolfe refused to allow the mystery to interfere with it. This was one of the many qualities I admired in him. The world could be collapsing. The orchids could be dying. A murderer could be waiting in the parlor. Lunch remained lunch. Wolfe sat behind his desk. Reed occupied the chair opposite him. Bell stood near the fireplace. I leaned against the bookcase. Wolfe looked at the two men. Mr. Bell. Yes. You arrived at Mr. Reed's office 40 minutes before your scheduled appointment. Yes. Why? I received instructions from Mr. Reed? Yes. How? By mail. Yesterday, yes. Containing the appointment card? Yes. Containing the altered time. Bell hesitated. I assumed the time was correct. Wolfe's eyes shifted to Reed. Did you write the card? The handwriting is mine. That was not my question. No, you wrote the appointment? Yes. For noon? Yes. On this card? Yes. Wolfe looked at me. Mr. Goodwin. I handed him the card. He examined it for perhaps 10 seconds. Altered, Bell said. I knew it. Reed frowned. How? Wolfe ignored him. Mr. Goodwin, did you observe the card before Mr. Reed saw it? Yes. And? The 11:20 appears to have been changed, not merely rewritten. No. I stepped closer. Wolfe pointed to the card. Observe the paper fibers. I did. The alteration was subtle. The ink had been applied after the original writing had dried. The person responsible had carefully scraped away the original numerals, then written the new time in a hand designed to imitate Reed's. But the imitation was not quite perfect. The pressure was wrong. Reed's genuine numerals pressed deeper into the card. The altered numbers sat lightly upon the surface. Someone changed noon to 11:20, I said. Wolfe nodded. Why? Bell answered immediately. To get me there early. Wolfe looked at him. Why, I don't know. Yet you carried documents. Bell said nothing. Reed leaned forward. What documents? Bell opened the portfolio. Inside were several folders, property assessments, financial statements, a preliminary purchase agreement, and one sealed envelope. Wolfe looked at the sealed envelope. That. Bell nodded. I was told to give it to Mr. Reed personally. By whom? The letter. Where is it? Bell produced the letter. Wolfe read it, then handed it to me. It contained only a few lines. Bring the enclosed file. Meet Jonathan Reed at 11:20. Give him the sealed envelope personally. Do not discuss the matter with his staff. No signature, no explanation. Wolfe looked thoughtful. Interesting. Reed said, I never sent this. I know. Then who did? Wolfe looked at Bell. That is the question. Bell sat. I thought someone was trying to interfere with our transaction, perhaps. I nearly left. Why didn't you? Bell glanced at the sealed envelope. Because I was told the matter was urgent. Wolfe's gaze sharpened. What is in the envelope? I don't know. You haven't opened it? No. Why? It was addressed to Reed, yet you carried it here. Yes. Wolfe leaned back. That is the first thing about you, I believe. Bell frowned. What does that mean? It means you are either very honest or very carefully instructed. Reed said. He's honest. Wolfe turned toward him. You sound certain. I've done business with him for 12 years. That is not certainty. What do you mean? People can know one another for 12 years and still fail to notice 40 minutes. I smiled. Reed did not. Wolfe reached for the sealed envelope. Mr. Bell. Yes. You said you were instructed to give this to Mr. Reed personally. Yes. By whom the letter? Then, why was the appointment moved 40 minutes earlier? Bell stared. I don't know. Wolfe nodded. Neither do I. He placed the envelope on his desk. But I know one thing. What? The person who altered the card did not want you to arrive at 11:20. Bell frowned. You just said they moved the appointment to 11:20. No, Wolfe's voice remained calm. They moved you 40 minutes too soon. He looked toward me. That distinction matters. Outside, somewhere beyond the brownstone, a taxi horn sounded and vanished into the ordinary noise of New York. Inside the office, the sealed envelope remained untouched. The appointment had been real. The handwriting had been real. The card had been genuine. Only the time had been changed, and someone had gone to considerable trouble to make sure Arthur Bell arrived 40 minutes before anyone expected him. Wolfe picked up his coffee. Mr. Goodwin. Yes? Find out what was supposed to happen at 11:20. I reached for my hat. And what happens at noon? Wolfe's eyes settled on the sealed envelope. We shall see whether the person who arranged the 40 minutes understands arithmetic. Chapter 2. The invitation that never existed. There are lies that require imagination, lies that require courage, and lies that require nothing more than a calendar. The best kind, from a criminal's point of view, is the last. A calendar is respectable. A calendar is quiet. A calendar never contradicts itself unless someone has altered it. Most people trust a written appointment more readily than they trust a living person. By 10 o'clock Wednesday morning, I had discovered that Arthur Bell's appointment card had been altered by someone who knew Jonathan Reed's handwriting, Reed's office routine, and apparently the exact amount of time required to make Bell arrive at 11:20. That was not enough for Wolfe. For Wolfe, almost nothing was enough until it had been arranged into a pattern. He had spent breakfast reading the financial papers while I reported my findings. The dining room smelled of coffee, toast, and the bacon Fritz had crisped to Wolfe's specifications. Sunlight came through the windows and touched the orchid plants visible beyond the glass doors to the rear garden. Wolfe had already eaten 2 servings of scrambled eggs with chives and was considering a third. I was considering homicide. Bell received the letter Monday afternoon, I said. His secretary logged it at 3:14. The envelope came through ordinary post. The postmark was Manhattan. His office telephone records show no call from Reed. His appointment diary shows noon. I waited. Wolfe lifted his fork. Then you have not continued. Where do you want me to continue? With the part that matters. The invitation. There was no invitation. I sat down. Bell received one. No. He received a letter. With instructions. Yes, that's an invitation. No, what is it? An instruction. What's the difference? An invitation permits refusal. Wolfe put down his fork. An instruction creates obligation. I considered that. Bell certainly behaved as though he were obligated. Exactly. So? So the person who sent it did not need Bell to believe Reed had invited him. I stared. He needed Bell to believe he had no choice but to come. Wolfe nodded. At 11:20. That was the contradiction we had found the previous afternoon. Bell had not been deceived into attending a meeting. He had been manipulated into arriving at a particular minute. The question was why. At 9:15 I was standing in the offices of Bellamy, Reed and Price with a list of questions and a headache. The receptionist, Helen Marsh, greeted me with the expression of someone who had already decided that private detectives were an inefficient use of office space. I remember Mr. Bell. I need everything concerning the letter he received. Again? Again, she sighed. I gave you the mail log yesterday. I need the original. She disappeared into the back. While she was gone, I examined the appointment book. Noon. Jonathan Reed's handwriting, Arthur Bell, acquisition meeting. Nothing else. Helen returned, carrying a large leather-bound volume. She placed it on the desk. Original. I opened it. The entry had been written several days earlier. I checked the ink, same pen as surrounding entries. No alteration, no erasures, no suspicious indentation. The appointment had always been noon. I looked at Helen. Who handles Reed Conter? His secretary. Name? Grace Palmer. Where is she? With Mr. Reed. Was she here Monday? Yes. Did she receive Bell's letter? No. Is opened by Linda. Linda? Linda Cole, Records. I wrote down the name. Who has access to the appointment book? Mr. Reed, Grace. Anyone else? Sometimes Mr. Bell. When? Usually when they have a meeting. Did Bell have access Monday? No. Tuesday? He could have. Could he have changed the appointment himself? Helen stared. No. Why not? Because the appointment book never said 11:20. That was true. The appointment card had been altered. The diary had not. The first layer of the deception was therefore confirmed. Whoever created the false time had not altered the office calendar. He had altered Bell's copy. That meant the purpose was not to change Reed's schedule. It was to change Bell's behavior. Grace Palmer was 42, efficient, dark-haired, and visibly irritated by the entire investigation. I did not send Mr. Bell any invitation, did Mr. Reed? No. Did you telephone him? No. Did anyone ask you to? No. Did you mention the meeting to anyone outside the office? Not that I recall. Who knew about the meeting? She looked at me. Why? Because someone knew. Mr. Reed. Mr. Bell. Naturally. Me. Yes, Mr. Price. Yes, possibly Mr. Bell's secretary. She knew. Anyone else? She hesitated. Mr. Reed's business manager. Name, Charles Morrow. What does he do? Hence, acquisitions and property matters. Was he aware of Bell's meeting? Yes. How? I mentioned it. When? Last Friday. Because Mr. Reed wanted the preliminary papers ready, I wrote it down. Who knew the meeting was at noon? Everyone involved in the transaction. Who knew Bell would bring the sealed envelope? She paused. That was not part of the official meeting. So who knew? Mr. Reed. I don't know. Mr. Bell. He said the envelope was for Mr. Reed. Did Mr. Reed expect one? Grace looked puzzled. I don't think so. That interested me. You're sure? Yes. Then why did Bell bring it? I don't know. Did anyone mention an envelope to you? No. Are you certain? She looked annoyed. Mr. Goodwin, I have already told you. Yes. I closed my notebook. One more question. What? Did anyone ask you to arrange anything for 11:20? She stared. No. That was the confirmation. 11:20 existed nowhere in Reed's office. Not the calendar. Not in the diary. Not in the secretary's notes. Not in the telephone records. Not in the messenger log. Yet it existed on Bell's card. That meant the false time had been created entirely outside Reed's office, but by someone who knew what was happening inside it. Linda Cole worked in a records room that smelled of paper, dust, and old toner. She was 56 and suspicious in a professional manner. Yes. Mr. Bell's letter. Yes. She opened a computer file. Received Monday, 3:14. 3:14. Who? Regular mail. Any messenger? No. Any special delivery? No. Was it marked personal? No. Was the envelope addressed in handwriting? No. Typed? Yes. Anything unusual? She thought. The stamp. What about it? 2 stamps. Normal. Yes. She looked at me, but the postage was slightly wrong. How? Too much. By how much? 4 cents. I stared. Someone overpaid, apparently. Does that matter? Not to the post office. To you. She shrugged. Not really. It mattered to me. Not because of the amount. Because the sender had not used a postage meter. Someone had deliberately prepared the envelope outside the office. I asked for the envelope. She brought it. I examined it. No return address. Typed address. 2 stamps. 1 cancelled slightly unevenly. I looked at the postmark. Monday. No more. I slipped the envelope into my pocket. Frowned. Can I have that back? Eventually. She didn't like the answer. Neither did I. At 11 I was in Bell's office. Arthur Bell sat behind a mahogany desk with the expression of a man who had been advised to cooperate with detectives and regretted listening. Tell me exactly how you received the letter. I've told you. Tell me again. He sighed. Monday afternoon. What time? About 3. Who brought it? My secretary. Edith Crane. She opened it? No. How do you know? Because she told me. She gave it to you? Yes. Did she say who delivered it? Mail. Did she recognize the envelope? No. Did she recognize the handwriting? It was typed. Did you call Reed after reading it? No. Why not? Because I assumed the meeting had been arranged. At 11:20? Yes. Why did you assume that? Because the card said so. The letter did not? The letter gave instructions. What instructions? Bell looked uncomfortable. Arrive early. How early? 11:20. Bring the acquisition file. Yes. Bring the sealed envelope. Yes. Come alone. Yes. Do not discuss the matter with Reed staff. Yes. Why? Because I thought the transaction was sensitive. Why would you think that? He paused. Because the letter said so. I leaned forward. Mr. Bell, had anyone ever warned you about Reed's staff? No. Had Reed ever asked you to keep negotiations secret from his secretary? No. Had anyone in the past suggested Reed distrusted his employees? No. Then why did you obey an anonymous letter? He looked at me for several seconds. Because it contained information only someone close to Reed could know. What information? He looked toward the door, then lowered his voice. Reed had changed his mind about the acquisition. I waited. He had decided to structure the transaction through a holding company. Was that true? Yes. How did you know? The letter told me. Who else knew? Reed. Anyone in your office? My lawyer. Anyone else? No. Then the writer knew Reed's private plans. Bell nodded. That's why I trusted it. That was important. The deception had not been crude. The sender had supplied genuine information. That made the false time believable. The person behind it had access to Reed's private schedule, or had access to someone who did. I returned to the brownstone shortly before noon. Wolfe was in the plant rooms. I found him among the orchids. The atmosphere there was warm and damp, fragrant with growing things and expensive attention. Wolfe stood in shirt sleeves inspecting a pale orchid with the seriousness as of a judge reviewing testimony. Do not touch that. I stopped. I wasn't. You were considering it. I was considering the envelope. Good. I handed him the original mailing envelope. He examined it without taking his eyes from the orchid. Overstamped. 4 cents. Why? To avoid a machine imprint, correct. Someone wanted to look like personal mail. Yes. Which means? The sender wanted the letter to appear ordinary. It did. Too ordinary. He finally turned toward me. Continue. I told him about the calendar, the secretary, the records clerk, Bell, and the private information contained in the letter. When I finished, Wolfe said, the sender knew the meeting. Yes. Knew the revised structure. Yes. Knew Bell would be trusted with documents. Yes. Knew Bell could be induced to arrive early. Yes, but did not alter Reed's calendar. No. Why? I answered before he could. Because the goal wasn't to make Reed available. Good. It was to make Bell available. Better. I sat. The false invitation was never meant to create a meeting. Wolfe nodded. It was meant to create a window. At 11:20. Exactly. A window for what? Wolfe looked at the envelope. That is the question. At 12:15 we received a telephone call from Jonathan Reed. I've discovered something. What? I asked. Arthur Bell wasn't the only person who received instructions. I looked at Wolfe. He had heard. Who else? I asked. Reed's voice tightened. Charles Morrow. Your business manager? Yes. What instructions? He was told to leave the office at 11:15 yesterday. He says he doesn't know. Did he leave? Yes. Where did he go? He won't say. Wolfe took the receiver from me. Mr. Reed. Yes. What time did Mr. Morrow return? 11:40. Did anyone see him? Grace. Did he have anything with him? A pause. Yes. What? I don't know. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Find out. I'll ask him. No. What? Bring him to me. Reed hesitated. Why? Because your office contains too many people who know something. Wolfe handed me back the receiver. That is precisely the difficulty. The line went dead. I looked at him. 2 people were manipulated. Yes. Bell was sent to the office at 11:20. Was sent away at 11:15. Why? Wolfe leaned back. Because someone wanted one man present and another absent. The question is what happened during those 25 minutes. Not quite. He reached for the appointment card. The question is what could happen at 11:20 that could not happen at noon. I looked at the altered numbers. 40 minutes. Not 30. Not an hour. 40. A very precise interval. What could happen in 40 minutes? Wolfe's expression became thoughtful. Something that requires preparation. Or concealment. Yes. Or access. Yes. I stood. Then we need Morrow. We need more than Morrow. What? The place where Bell was supposed to meet Reed. The office. No. Wolfe tapped the appointment card. The meeting was never the destination. I stared at him. Then what was? He looked toward the clock. It showed 12:28. Goodwin. Yes, find out where Arthur Bell went between 11:20 and noon. I understood. The false appointment had been designed to get Bell to a location before the real meeting. But Bell had never left the office, unless the person who created the deception had counted on something we had not yet considered. I reached for my hat. One more thing. What? If Bell was supposed to arrive at 11:20, why 40 minutes exactly? Wolfe's eyes settled on the appointment card. Because 40 minutes was not an arbitrary advantage. He turned it over. There is a reason that particular amount of time was selected. What reason? We shall discover it. He placed the card beside the sealed envelope. The invitation never existed. He looked at me. But the opportunity did, and that, I was beginning to understand, was considerably worse. Chapter 3. The 40-minute window. There are 40 minutes in every hour, according to some accountants. The rest belong to people who do not understand accounting. I had never before regarded 40 minutes as a dangerous unit of time. An hour could be dangerous. A minute could be fatal. 10 seconds could ruin a man's reputation, marriage, bank account, or breakfast. But 40 minutes? 40 minutes was what you spent waiting for a dentist. Or a woman who had said she would be ready in 5. Or a train that had been announced as delayed. After Wednesday morning, I regarded 40 minutes differently. It was enough time to steal something. It was enough time to hide something. It was enough time to open a locked cabinet, examine a file, photograph a document, replace it, lock the cabinet, wash your hands, straighten your tie, and return to your desk looking innocent. And, as Nero Wolfe discovered, it was exactly the amount of time somebody had needed. At 8:20 that morning, Wolfe had already reconstructed the schedule of Bellamy, Reed and Price 3 times. At 8:30, he reconstructed it a 4th. At 8:40, he told me I was wrong. At 8:45, I told him he was wrong. At 8:46, Fritz entered with breakfast. At 8:47, I admitted that he was probably right. That was because the coffee was excellent. Wolfe sat behind his desk in his brown dressing gown, his breakfast arranged before him with the quiet dignity of a diplomatic conference. Beyond the windows, New York was beginning another day of horns, brakes, footsteps, shouted bargains, and impatient people who had not yet learned that the city would continue without their assistance. On the dining room table, meanwhile, lay a sheet of paper covered with my handwriting. At the top I had written 11:20 a.m. Below it were 40 minutes divided into 5-minute intervals. Wolfe studied it. You have missed something. I have included everything. No, I have the receptionist, secretary, records clerk, Reed, Bell, Morrow, the messenger, the mail, the cabinet, the appointment, and the telephone records. You have included people. What else is there? Time. I looked at the sheet. It is all time. No, it is a list of times. He picked up his fork. That is different. I sat opposite him. All right, explain. At 11:20, Mr. Bell arrives. Yes. At 11:32, Reed is still absent. Yes. At 11:37, Grace Palmer leaves her desk to get coffee. Correct. At 11:40, Linda Cole enters the records room. Correct. At 11:43, she leaves. Correct. At 11:45, Charles Morrow returns. Yes. At 11:50, Reed arrives. Yes. At noon, the scheduled meeting begins. Except it doesn't. Why? Because Bell has already been there 40 minutes. Wolfe put down his fork. Exactly. He looked at me. You continue to assume the purpose of the deception was Bell. It was. No, it got him there. That was a consequence. Then what was the purpose? 40 minutes. You've said that. Then, perhaps you should listen. He pointed toward the sheet. From 11:20 until noon, the office was in a condition it occupied at no other time that morning. I studied the names. Reed was absent, yes. Bell was present, yes. Grace was there, mostly. Linda was in records, not continuously. Morrow was out, correct. I frowned. Why does Morrow matter? Wolfe smiled faintly. Because he was the only employee whose absence and return correspond precisely with the beginning and ending of our window. That was interesting. Very interesting. I reached for the telephone. Wolfe stopped me. No, why? Because you are going to Bellamy, Reed and Price. To question Morrow? Not yet. Then what? To look at the cabinet. The cabinet occupied the records room at the rear of the 3rd floor. It was an ugly steel thing painted a shade of grey that had surrendered hope years before. There were 4 drawers. The upper 3 contained ordinary accounting files. The bottom drawer was locked. Linda Cole stood beside it. You've already seen this. Yesterday I saw the outside. Today I want the inside, she frowned. I don't have authority. Who does? Mr. Reed. Where is he? Call him. Reed arrived 5 minutes later. He looked at the cabinet. What are you looking for? Anything. That is not a useful answer. It often is. He unlocked the drawer. Inside were folders arranged alphabetically. Contracts, property acquisitions, tax records, old partnership agreements, correspondence. I examined them. Nothing appeared disturbed. Who uses this, Grace? Linda Sumt. Mr. Morrow. Who has keys? Me, Grace, Linda. Anyone else? Reed hesitated. Charles. Why? He handles acquisitions. Why does an acquisitions manager need access to old property files? He doesn't need them often. Often enough. Reed's expression tightened. Goodwin, are you accusing Charles Morrow? I'm asking why he has a key. I gave him one. When? 3 months ago. Why? Because we were reviewing several older transactions. Which ones? Reed looked toward Linda. Ask her, Linda said. The Harcourt file. That name caught my attention. Harcourt? Yes. What's that? An old property transaction. How old? 30 years. Why was Morrow reviewing it? Mr. Reed was considering whether to reopen a claim. I looked at Reed. You didn't mention this. I didn't think it mattered. It might, he sighed. The Harcourt Theatre property is involved in a title dispute. The abandoned theatre? Yes. I stared at the cabinet. Is the file here? Linda shook her head. It was. When? Last month. Where is it now? She checked the drawer. Then another. Then a neighboring cabinet. It should be here. Should. I remember seeing it. When? 3 weeks ago. Who removed it? I don't know. Reed looked at her. Was Morrow reviewing it? Yes. When? Several times. I looked at Reed. Why didn't you tell me this yesterday? He rubbed his forehead. Because the Harcourt matter was dormant. Apparently not. He said nothing. I crouched beside the cabinet. The lock showed no damage. The drawer opened normally. But along the inner edge of the metal I noticed a thin smear. Not dirt. Oil. Fresh enough to retain a faint sheen. I touched it. What is that? Linda leaned down. I don't know. Does the cabinet normally squeak? Yes. It didn't yesterday? She looked at me. I wasn't here when you opened it. Exactly. Reed looked impatient. What does the oil prove? Nothing. Then why are you interested? Because somebody wanted the lock to open quietly. I stood. Whoever accessed this drawer didn't force it. No, they had a key. Reed nodded. Several people do. Yes, and one of them was absent during the 40-minute window. His face changed. You mean Morrow? I mean nothing yet. I closed the drawer. Where is he? Again. Reed looked at his watch. He's due back at 10. I smiled. Then I'll wait. Charles Morrow arrived at 10:12. He was 46, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed, and possessed the sort of confidence that can be purchased only by years of being promoted over people who deserved it more. He entered Reed's office carrying a leather folder. He saw me, stopped. Mr. Goodwin, you know me. Everyone knows you. That's becoming inconvenient. He smiled. Why are you here? To discuss the Harcourt file. The smile disappeared, only for a second, then returned. I don't know what you're talking about. Interesting. Why? Because I haven't told you what happened to it. He looked at Reed. Reed said nothing. Morrow turned back to me. I reviewed the file several weeks ago. When? I don't remember. Try, I can't. Who gave you access? Reed. Did you remove anything? No. Did you make copies? No. Did you ask anyone about the file system? His eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Exactly what I said. No. Not that I remember. Did you ask Linda Cole where old acquisition records were stored? No. Did you ask Grace Palmer whether Reed kept duplicate property files? Did you ask the receptionist whether old contracts were moved to another office? No. Did you ask the messenger who handled document transfers? No. Answering too quickly. I leaned against the desk. Then someone else has been asking those questions. He shrugged. Apparently. Who? I don't know. Yet you seem unconcerned. I don't involve myself in office gossip. Those aren't gossip questions. He looked toward Reed. Do you know what this is about? Reed said. Mr. Goodwin believes someone used your absence yesterday to enter the records cabinet. Morrow laughed. That's absurd. Why? Because I wasn't in the building. Exactly. He stopped laughing. That was the second time. Where were you? Out. Where? Personal business? What kind? Private. How convenient. He smiled. Are you accusing me? No. Good. I'm accusing whoever knew you would be gone. His expression hardened. I don't appreciate this. You don't have to. I stood. You only have to answer. He looked at Reed. Do you want me to answer? Reed hesitated. Yes, Morrow exhaled. I went to a bank. Which one? First Metropolitan. Why? Personal account. What time? 11:15. How long? 25 minutes. I glanced at Reed. Morrow returned at 11:40. Yes, exactly. Morrow's face remained neutral. You were seen entering the bank? Yes. By whom? I don't know. Security camera. Probably. I smiled. Then we can verify. He looked at me. Of course, he had recovered too quickly. That bothered me. People who are innocent generally dislike verification. People who have prepared for it welcome it. At 11, Wolfe telephoned. What have you found? The Harcourt file was in the locked cabinet. It disappeared. Morrow had a key. He was out from 11:15 until 11:40. And the cabinet shows signs of recent lubrication. Silence. Then, good. Good, now you have a mechanism, not a motive. No. Why the Harcourt file? I do not know. Morrow denies about the filing system. Did he? I asked 6 people. And someone asked unusually detailed questions. Who? Linda says Morrow asked where old files were kept. Grace says Morrow asked about duplicate contracts. More interesting, the messenger says Morrow asked how long it took to move documents between floors. Wolfe was silent. Archie, yes? What time did Morrow supposedly leave for the bank? 11:15, and Bell arrived. 11:20, 5 minutes apart. Yes. Why? I don't know. You do, I thought. Bell's arrival distracted everyone. Yes. Morrow leaving looked ordinary. Yes. Someone wanted the office to believe 2 unrelated things were happening. Precisely, I sat down. The deception created noise. No. What? Noise is accidental. Then what? Cover. That word changed the shape of the problem. Bell had been sent early. Morrow had been sent away. The receptionist had been occupied with Bell. The secretary had been dealing with the unexpected visitor. The records clerk had been moving between departments. Reed was not there. The office had been deliberately rearranged. Not physically, socially. Everyone was doing something they could explain later, which meant nobody would remember the 40 minutes as suspicious, except Wolfe. At 12:30 I returned to the brownstone. Wolfe was in the plant rooms again. I found him examining a purple orchid. You're going to tell me not to touch it? I was. Good. I gave him the report. He listened without interruption. When I finished, he said, Morrow is not our thief. I blinked. You've decided? Yes, why? Because he has been too obvious. He had the key. He had the opportunity. He knew about the files. He knew about the schedule. He left during the window. Yes, that's a lot. I stared at him. Then who? Someone who needed Morrow's absence. But why? Because Morrow was the only employee who might have noticed the theft. I considered it. What did Morrow know? That the Harcourt file existed. Maybe. What else? That it contained something important. Why? Because he had been reviewing it. Wolfe shook his head. Not enough. He turned back to the orchid. The important question is not who knew about the file. What is it? Who knew the file could be found? I frowned. That's the same thing. No, he pointed to the flower. If you know a book exists in a library, you need not know where it is. You need the catalogue. Exactly. He looked at me. The filing system. The words from the previous afternoon returned. Someone had asked detailed questions, not merely about the Harcourt file, about how files were stored, who held keys, how duplicates were handled, how long transfers took, which cabinet was locked, who might be present. That was not curiosity. That was preparation. At 1:30 we returned to Bellamy, Reed and Price. This time I brought Wolfe. He disliked leaving the brownstone. He disliked offices even more. But he considered the case sufficiently interesting to make the sacrifice. Reed met us in the lobby. You came? Wolfe nodded. Mr. Reed, I've had security check the cabinet, and no forced entry. Of course. What does that mean? It means whoever opened it knew what he was doing. Reed looked at me. Mr. Goodwin said you suspected someone. I suspect everyone. That's reassuring. No, we entered the records room. Wolfe examined the cabinet without touching it. Then he examined the surrounding shelves, the floor, the door, the desk, the key hooks. Finally, he looked at Linda. How long have you worked here? 23 years. Who trained you? Mr. Price. Who knows the filing system as well as you, she thought. Grace. Mr. Morrow? Yes. Anyone else? She hesitated. Mr. Bell. I looked at her. Arthur Bell? Yes. Why? He used to handle some of our older property accounts. When years ago? Wolfe turned toward me. Interesting, I nodded. Bell knew the system. Bell knew Reed. Bell knew the meeting. Bell had received the altered appointment. Bell had arrived 40 minutes early. Bell had carried a sealed envelope. Suddenly, the man I had spent 2 days treating as the victim looked considerably less simple. Wolfe noticed my expression. Do not decide. I wasn't. You were. Fine. Then undecide. I looked at the cabinet. Could Bell have opened it? Yes. Could he have done it between 11:20 and noon? Yes. Would anyone have noticed? Possibly not. Wolfe nodded. Now ask the better question. Why would he? I looked at him. To take the Harcourt file. Why? Because it contains something, such as ownership records, perhaps. I looked at Reed. What exactly was in the Harcourt file? Reed answered slowly. Old title documents. Anything unusual. Not that I know. Who would benefit from them? He hesitated. Someone challenging ownership. Who? The Harcourt heirs. I turned. The theatre's original owners? Yes. Why would they challenge it now? Reed said nothing. Wolfe did. Because something has changed. What? He looked at the cabinet. Someone has begun looking for the missing documents. At 3 in the afternoon I returned to Bell's office. He was not there. His secretary said he had gone to lunch. I waited. When he returned, he looked surprised. Mr. Goodwin, I need to ask you something about the Harcourt Theatre. His expression became unreadable. What about it? You once handled the property account, many years ago. You knew where the records were kept, probably. You knew Reed's filing system. Yes. You knew about the noon appointment. Yes. You received an anonymous letter. Yes. You arrived 40 minutes early. Yes. And you carried a sealed envelope. Yes. He stared at me. What exactly are you asking? Yesterday? No. Did you open the locked cabinet? No. Did you remove the Harcourt file? No. Do you know where it is? No. I believed him. Not because he looked honest. Because he looked offended. There is a difference. What is in the sealed envelope? I told you. I don't know. Who gave it to you? The letter. Then who wrote the letter? I don't know. Who knew enough about Reed's plans to make you trust it? He hesitated. I assumed it was Reed. Why? Because of the information. What information? He repeated what he had told me. The holding company. The revised acquisition. The private terms. Then he added something I had not heard before. The letter also mentioned a document Reed had asked me to locate 3 years ago. I sat straighter. What document? A transfer agreement. For what? The Harcourt property. There it was, the first real connection. The letter writer had not merely known Reed's current schedule. He had known a private request Reed had made 3 years earlier, a request involving the same property file that had now disappeared. I asked Bell one final question. Did the letter tell you why you had to arrive at 11:20? He shook his head. No. Did it tell you what would happen at noon? No. Then why 11:20? He looked at me. I thought that was Reed's instruction. I believed that too. But now I understood what Wolfe had meant. Bell had not been summoned to a meeting. He had been positioned, and someone had needed him there for 40 minutes. At 5 o'clock I returned to Wolfe's office. He was in the library. He had changed into a dark suit. That meant company was expected, or deductions were about to be made. I told him about the Harcourt connection. He listened. When I finished, he said, "Excellent. You keep saying that. I have cause." Bell knew the filing system. Yes. The letter writer knew Reed had asked Bell to locate the Harcourt transfer agreement 3 years ago. Yes. The Harcourt file vanished. Yes. Someone wanted Bell in the office 40 minutes early. Yes. Someone wanted Morrow out. Yes. Someone had asked questions about the filing system. Yes. I leaned forward. So Bell could have stolen the file. He could. But you don't think he did? No. Why? Because he brought the sealed end envelope. I frowned. What does that prove? Think. I did. The envelope had been given to Bell, with the instruction to hand it personally to Reed. If Bell intended to steal the Harcourt file, why bring another document that could expose the operation? Unless, I looked up. The envelope was the real reason. Wolfe smiled. Now you are approaching it. Someone wanted Bell to bring something to Reed. Yes. And arrive early. Yes. While Morrow was absent. So the envelope had to be delivered at 11:20. Then what? The envelope was bait. I stared. For whom? Wolfe did not answer. He went to his desk and picked up the altered appointment card. He held it between his fingers. Mr. Goodwin. Yes, what is the one thing every person in this case has assumed? That Bell was the target. Correct. And he isn't. No, then. Who is? Wolfe turned the card over. The person who expected to find Bell waiting. I felt the pieces move again. The false appointment had created an unexpected presence inside Reed's office. Bell. The real meeting remained scheduled for noon. The person manipulating events had therefore created a situation in which, at 11:20, an outsider would be sitting in Reed's office while Reed was absent. That outsider could serve as a witness, a distraction, an explanation, or a shield. And if something disappeared during those 40 minutes, everyone would naturally look at Bell. Wolfe had said it earlier. The purpose was not the man, it was the window, I said. Someone used Bell as cover. Yes. Then the thief didn't need Bell to steal the file. Correct. He needed everyone to think Bell could have stolen it. Correct. And the 40 minutes gave him the opportunity. Wolfe nodded. But there is one remaining difficulty. What? He pointed to the clock. Who knew that 40 minutes would be enough? I looked at him. Morrow? No. Grace? No. Linda? No. Reed? No. Then who? Wolfe's expression became very still. Someone who had studied the office, the filing system, the personnel, the schedule, the habits, the locks, the corridors, the messenger routes, the telephone. He nodded. Someone had prepared for this. I looked toward the darkening windows. Outside, New York was slipping into evening. Office lights were appearing floor by floor across the neighboring buildings. Traffic thickened below. Somewhere a truck driver was expressing an opinion about a taxi. Inside Wolfe's office, the case had become much narrower, not simpler, narrower. The invitation had never existed. The appointment had always been noon. The 11:20 time was false. The false time had been designed to make Bell arrive early. The 40 minutes had been engineered. Morrow had been absent. The cabinet had been opened. The Harcourt file had vanished. And someone had been studying Reed's filing system long before any of us knew there was a reason to study it. I said, we need to know who asked those questions. Wolfe nodded. Yes. Then we find the person. No. I looked at him. We find the person who answered them. That stopped me. Why? Because the person who asked may have lied. He placed the appointment card beside the sealed envelope. But the person who answered had to tell the truth. I smiled. You've got another question. Several. Such as? Wolfe leaned back. Who knew the Harcourt file was worth stealing? He looked at the altered 11:20. And why was Arthur Bell the perfect man to make the theft look like an accident? The answer, I suspected, would not be found in the appointment book. It would be found in the 40 minutes nobody had thought worth remembering. Chapter 4. The Man Who Knew the Schedule. The trouble with a schedule is that it looks like a list of facts. It is not. A schedule is a collection of intentions, and intentions are among the most useful things a criminal can steal. By Thursday morning, I had learned that Jonathan Reed's movements were known by 4 people with sufficient precision to make the 40-minute window possible. Margaret Lane knew because she was his secretary. Thomas Avery knew because he was his accountant. George Nolan knew because he ran the office. Arthur Bell knew because he had been doing business with Reed for 12 years. That left us with 4 suspects, 1 missing file, 1 altered appointment, and 40 minutes that had become more valuable than most men's annual salaries. Wolfe regarded the matter over breakfast. He had a bowl of strawberries in front of him, though I had noticed that he was eating them with the solemn concentration of a man examining evidence. Which one? He asked. Which one what? Would you choose? I'd choose Avery. Why? Accountants know where things are buried. That is prejudice. It's experience. You have no experience with Mr. Avery. I have experience with accountants. Wolfe ate another strawberry. That is still prejudice. Then I choose Nolan. Why? Office managers know everybody's business better. Margaret Lane knows the schedule. She is the secretary. Exactly, and Bell? Bell is too obvious, Wolfe nodded. Good. I reached for coffee. So you agree? No, then why did you say good? Because you have finally learned that obviousness is not evidence. That was Wolfe. He could turn a compliment into an insult without changing his tone. I picked up my notebook. What do you want? Chronology, again, not the chronology we already possess. What kind? The chronology Reed remembers. I looked at him. Why? Because memory is useful only after you know who had an opportunity to arrange it. He pushed the bowl aside. Bring me the 4. All together? No. Separately. Why? People become cooperative when they believe the next person will contradict them. And if they don't, then we have learned something. Margaret Lane was the first. She arrived at 11, carrying a notebook, and the expression of a woman who had already decided that she had more important things to do. She was in her early 40s, neatly dressed, direct in manner, and apparently incapable of wasting a syllable. Wolfe remained behind his desk. I sat beside the window. Margaret took the chair opposite him. You wanted to ask me about Mr. Reed's schedule? Yes. I've already spoken with Mr. Goodwin. Yes. He asked me the same questions. No. She looked at me. No? He asked you questions about events. Wolfe folded his hands. I am asking about sequence. Margaret frowned. What's the difference? The difference between knowing what happened and knowing how it happened. She considered that. All right. What time did Mr. Reed arrive yesterday? 11:50. What time did he leave? 6:10. Did he leave the office before 11:50? No. Are you certain? Yes. Did he telephone anyone? Yes. When? At approximately 10:40. From the office? Yes. To whom? His lawyer. How long? About 6 minutes. Was anyone else present? Me. Did he mention Mr. Bell? No. Did he mention the Harcourt property? No. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Did he make any change to his schedule? Yes. I sat forward. What change? His noon meeting. With Bell? Yes. What changed? He moved it. To when? 11:45. I looked at Wolfe. He did not move. Yesterday? I asked. Yes. Mr. Reed said he wanted to finish early. When did he make the change? That morning. What time? About 10:50. Who knew? I did. Anyone else? Mr. Reed. Did you tell Bell? No. Why not? Because Mr. Reed changed his mind again. When? Margaret looked uncomfortable. At 11:10. What did he do? He returned the meeting to noon. I stared. Why? He said he had another matter to attend to, which I didn't say. Wolfe spoke. Did Mr. Reed make that change in writing? No. Did you alter the diary? No. Why? He told me not to. Why? I don't know. Did you ask? No. Wolfe leaned back. At 10:50 the meeting was moved to 11:45. Yes. At 11:10 it was moved back to noon. Yes. Who knew of the temporary change? Margaret looked at me. Mr. Reed and me. Anyone else? Not officially. Why does that matter? She answered carefully. Because if someone knew about the 11:45 appointment, they would have known Mr. Reed expected to be available earlier than noon. Wolfe nodded. And who knew? Margaret hesitated. Mr. Avery may have. Why? He was in Mr. Reed's office at 10:50. Doing what? Discussing the acquisition. Which acquisition? The Bell transaction. I wrote it down. How long was he there? About 15 minutes. So he was present when the appointment was changed. Possibly. Did he hear Reed give the instruction? I don't know. Did Mr. Avery leave before 11:10? Yes. Did he return? Not until afternoon. Wolfe asked. Who else was in the office at 10:50? George Nolan. Was he there when Mr. Reed changed the appointment? I don't remember. Wolfe's gaze remained fixed on her. You don't remember? No. Yesterday you told Mr. Goodwin that Mr. Reed did not change his schedule. Margaret stiffened. I said I didn't remember a change. You did. I may have been mistaken. No. Wolfe's voice was mild. You were not mistaken. She looked at him. Then what was I? You were careful. Silence. Margaret's fingers tightened around her notebook. Wolfe, are you accusing me? No. Then what are you doing? Determining who knew what. He looked toward me. Mr. Goodwin. Yes? Ask her about 11:20. I turned to Margaret. What happened at 11:20? Mr. Bell arrived. What did you do? I told him Mr. Reed wasn't expecting him. Then he insisted on waiting. Where? Reception. Did you remain there? No. Where did you go? Mr. Reed's office. Why? To collect some props. She hesitated. An acquisition memorandum. For Bell? Yes. Was it in the office? No. Where was it? Records. I felt a small tightening in my chest. What time did you enter records? 11:25. How long were you there? 5 minutes. Who was Linda Cole? Did you remove the Harcourt file? No. Did you see it? No. Wolfe said. You were in records at 11:25. Yes. Mr. Bell was in reception. Yes. Mr. Morrow was absent. Yes. Did anyone know you would go to records? Margaret looked at him. I don't know. Did you tell anyone? No. Then how did the person who opened the cabinet, the records room, would be occupied? I don't understand. Neither do I. That was Wolfe saying he understood perfectly well. Margaret left 10 minutes later. I watched the door close. She knows more. Yes. Did she alter the appointment? No. Are you certain? I blinked. Then why say no? Because if she altered it, she would have made the deception simpler. How? She could have changed the diary. Exactly. Unless she wanted the diary untouched. Wolfe looked at me. Now you are thinking. Thomas Avery arrived at noon. He was a thin man with a round face, rimless spectacles, and a habit of smoothing his tie whenever anyone asked him a difficult question. He sat down. Mr. Avery, I understand this concerns the missing Harcourt file. It concerns several things. Am I suspected? By whom? Mr. Reed. He has not said so. Avery looked relieved. Good. Wolfe said, did you know Mr. Reed had changed his meeting with Mr. Bell yesterday? Yes. When? At 10:50. I looked up. Margaret had given us the same time. Who told you? Reed. What did he say? He said he wanted Bell at 11:45. Did you tell anyone? No. Did you know Bell had been instructed to arrive at 11:20? No. Did you know about the letter? No. Did you know about the sealed envelope? No. Did you know the Harcourt file was missing? Not until yesterday afternoon. Did you know where it was kept? Yes. How? I'm the accountant. That is not an answer. Avery smiled nervously. I've handled the property accounts. Did you ever ask Linda van der Kool about the filing system? Yes. When? 7 weeks ago. Why? Because I needed old records. Which records? The Harcourt accounts. What did you need translated? Did you find them? No. Why? The file was incomplete. Who told you that? Linda. Did you ask about duplicate copies? Yes. Who told you? George Nolan. Did you ask about cabinet keys? No. Wolfe watched him. Mr. Avery, yesterday at 10:50, when Mr. Reed changed the meeting time. Did you notice his calendar? No. His appointment book? Did you notice the time he wrote? Then how do you know? It was 11:45. Avery's hand stopped smoothing his tie. Mr. Reed told me those were his words? Yes. Exactly. I don't remember. Wolfe turned to me. Mr. Goodwin. I looked at Avery. Did Reed say 11:45? Avery hesitated. Yes. Or did he say bring Bell in early? Avery looked at me. Perhaps the latter. Perhaps? I don't remember. Wolfe said quietly. You remembered a precise time 2 minutes ago. Avery swallowed. I may have confused the two. With what? I don't know. Wolfe nodded. Neither do I. Avery left soon afterward. I watched him go. That was odd. Yes. Do you think he was lying? He was repeating something. What's the difference? A liar invents. Wolfe looked toward the door. A repeater remembers. George Nolan was different. He was 50, heavyset, practical, and completely unimpressed by private detectives. He entered carrying a folder. You wanted me? Yes, he sat. Let's get this over with. Wolfe liked him immediately. Good. Nolan glanced at me. Goodwin says somebody studied our filing system. Yes, that's nonsense. Why? Because our filing system isn't worth studying. I smiled. Someone studied it. Then the person was bored. Did you answer questions about it? Possibly. Who asked? Charles Morrow. When? About a month ago. What did he ask? Where old property records went. Why? He said Reed wanted a historical review. Did you believe him? What else? He asked who had keys. Who did you tell him? Me, Reed, Margaret, Linda. Anyone else? Not officially. What does officially mean? Bell used to have access. Does he now? No. Could he? Yes. How? Nolan shrugged. Old keys aren't always surrendered. That was interesting. Did Morrow know that? I don't. Did you tell him? No. Did you tell anyone else? No, Wolfe asked. Yesterday at 10:50. Where were you? In Reed's office. Why, printer? The one outside his office. How long? 10 minutes. Who else was present? Reed. Margaret? No. Avery? Yes. Did Reed change his meeting with Bell? Yes. What time? Nolan looked at him. I glanced at 45. Same time. What happened next? I asked. Avery left. And? I fixed the printer. How long? Until 11:10. What happened at 11:10? Reed told Margaret to return the meeting to noon. I sat back. Nolan had described the exact sequence. But his certainty bothered me. Mr. Nolan. Yes, how do you remember this? He smiled. Because I was there. So I remember. Where did you stand? Outside Reed's office. Could you hear the conversation? Yes. Every word? No. Then how do you know Reed changed the time? He told Margaret. Did you hear him? Yes. Exactly. What did he say? Nolan looked at me. He said, "Leave it at noon." I stared. "That's all?" "Yes." "Then how did you know the earlier time was 11:45? He blinked. "I told you. You didn't." Silence. Wolfe's eyes had become very still. I continued. "You said Reed changed the meeting to 11:45. "Yes." "Then you said he later told Margaret to leave it at noon." "Yes, but you claim you never heard the first instruction." Nolan's face changed. "I heard enough. Enough to know the exact time." He said nothing. I looked at Wolfe. Wolfe looked at Nolan. "Who told you 11:45? Nolan swallowed. "Nobody." "Think carefully." I remembered. "No." Wolfe's voice was quiet. "You did not remember." Nolan stared at him. "You were told." The room became silent. Nolan looked down at his hands. "I may have heard it from Margaret." "When?" "I don't know." "Or yesterday." "Perhaps." Wolfe leaned forward. "Nolan, you have just described a sequence of events that occurred yesterday, as though you had been present for every step." "I was." "No. I was in the office, but not in the room." Nolan's jaw tightened. "You are splitting hairs." "No." Wolfe's voice hardened. "I am separating memory from rehearsal." Nolan looked at him. "What does that mean?" "It means someone told you the story before it happened." Nolan's face went pale. I understood. Someone had prepared him, not necessarily to lie, to remember. After Nolan left, I closed the door. "That was our man." "No." "Morrow." "No." "Then Nolan." "No." "Why not?" "Because he was rehearsed." "Exactly, which makes him useful. Not guilty." Wolfe nodded. "Someone gave Nolan a sequence." "Why?" "So that when questioned he would provide it." "Why 11:45? "Because that is the time the planner needed us to believe." I sat. "Wait." Wolfe looked at me. "If Nolan was rehearsed, then someone knew he'd be questioned." "Yes, before the theft, obviously. So whoever rehearsed him knew there would be an investigation." "Yes, which means the plan anticipated discovery." "Correct." I felt a chill. "Then the missing file wasn't meant to stay missing." Wolfe smiled. "Now you see it." Arthur Bell came to the brownstone at 4. He looked tired. "Mr. Wolfe." Wolfe motioned him to sit. "Mr. Bell, did you know Reed changed your appointment yesterday morning?" "No." "Did you know he had moved it to 11:45? "No." "Did you know he had moved it back to noon?" "No." "Did anyone tell you?" "No." "You tell anyone you were going to Reed's office at 11:20? "My secretary." "Anyone else?" "My lawyer." "Did your lawyer know the exact time?" "Yes." "Who else?" Bell frowned. "I don't know." Wolfe picked up the sealed envelope. "You were told to bring this." "Yes." "Have you opened it?" "No." "Would you like to?" Bell looked at it. "No." "Why?" "Because it isn't mine." Wolfe nodded. "Good." He handed it to me. "Open it." Bell looked surprised. "You just said not to." "I said he should not open it." I slit the envelope. Inside was a single folded sheet. I unfolded it. It contained a list of 3 property descriptions, all connected to the Harcourt Theatre. Bell looked at the page. "I've never seen that. Do you recognize the handwriting?" "No." Wolfe examined it. "Neither do I." I read the final line. "Ask Reed why the 4th transfer was never recorded." I looked at Bell. "What does that mean?" He shook his head. "I don't know." Wolfe took the paper. His eyes moved over it. Then he smiled. Not broadly. Wolfe rarely smiled broadly. "Archie." "Yes?" "We have been looking for the wrong document." "What do you mean?" "The missing Harcourt file is not the object of the theft." Bell stared. "Then what is?" Wolfe folded the paper. "The 4th transfer. At 5:30 Reed arrived. He was angry." "Why was this opened?" "Because you said nothing about it." "I didn't know it existed. That is why it matters." Wolfe handed him the paper. Reed read it. His face changed. "Where did you get this?" "Mr. Bell received it." "I never sent it." "I know." Reed looked at Bell. "Did you?" "No." "Then who?" Wolfe said. "That is what we are going to determine." Reed looked at the property descriptions. "I know these. Of course. The first 3 were recorded. Yes. The 4th," he stopped. "What?" "I thought it had been cancelled. By whom I don't remember." Wolfe's eyes sharpened. "You don't remember?" Reed looked uncomfortable. "It was years ago." "Who handled the transaction?" Reed hesitated. "Thomas Avery." Bell looked at him. Yes." "Did he know?" "Certainly." "Did Morrow know?" "Probably." "Did Margaret?" "She would have." "George?" "No." "Possibly." Wolfe nodded. "Good," I said. "Then we have another problem." Reed looked at me. "What?" "Everyone who knew about the 4th transfer also knew enough about your office to understand the filing system." Wolfe corrected me. "Not everyone." "Who?" "The person who knew what the 4th transfer meant." Reed frowned. "And who is that?" Wolfe looked at him. You. Reed went still. I looked between them. Why? Because Mr. Reed made a private change yesterday morning. Reed stared. I changed the meeting. No. What? You changed something else? Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Something you have not told us. Reed's face tightened. I don't know what you mean. At 10:40. 10:40 you telephoned your lawyer. Yes. What did you discuss? Legal business? About Harcourt. Reed said nothing. Wolfe leaned back. That is enough. I looked at him. Enough for what? To know that the man who planned the 40-minute window knew about the private change. The call? Yes. Who heard it? That is what we shall find out. He turned toward Reed. Mr. Reed. Yes? Who was the only person you told that morning that the Harcourt transfer had never been cancelled? Reed stared at Wolfe, then slowly said, Thomas Avery. The room became silent. Wolfe looked at me. Now we know who knew the schedule. I reached for my notebook. And who knew the story? Wolfe shook his head. Not yet. Why? Because Mr. Avery did not merely know what happened. He looked toward the door, through which Avery had left earlier. He knew what we were supposed to believe happened. That distinction, as I had learned by then, was worth far more than 40 minutes. Chapter 5. The envelope in the wrong drawer. The trouble with envelopes is that people tend to assume the important thing is what they contain. This is particularly dangerous when the envelope has been sealed by somebody else. A sealed envelope invites curiosity, and curiosity invites mistakes. A man opens it because he wants to know what is inside. Another man refuses to open it because he wants everyone to believe he has nothing to hide. A third man arranges for the envelope to be carried across Manhattan, because what he really wants is neither the envelope nor its contents. He wants somebody to look in the wrong drawer. By Friday morning, the envelope had become the most innocent-looking object in the case. That was why Wolfe distrusted it. He sat in the office behind his desk, wearing a dark brown suit and reading the document I had removed from the envelope. The orchids beyond the glass doors were bright with morning light, and the air in the plant rooms was warm enough to make February seem like a rumor. I stood by the window. You're reading it again. Wolfe turned a page. Yes. You've read it 6 times. 7. Why? Because it is lying. I looked at the paper. It had 3 property descriptions, 2 references to an old partnership, and a final instruction concerning a 4th transfer connected with the Harcourt property. It doesn't look like a lie. That is why it is effective. You mean the facts are false? No, then what is false? The reason it exists. I sat. All right. Start. Wolfe placed the paper on his desk. The document is genuine. How do you know? The ink, paper formatting, and references are consistent with the period in which the original agreement was prepared. You had it examined? Yes. By whom? Lippincott, our document examiner. He found no modern alteration. Correct. So the document is old. The sheet is old. I looked at him. That's not the same thing. No. Someone could have put an old document into a new envelope. Precisely. And that's what happened? I don't know. He looked at the envelope. But I know the envelope was prepared recently. I picked it up. Because of the copying shop? Because of several things. Such as the paper stock. Ordinary. Too ordinary. That's a contradiction. No, it is an observation, I smiled. You're becoming contagious. That is unfortunate. He opened a file. Mr. Goodwin, yesterday you asked Mr. Bell where he received the envelope. Yes. He said it was handed to him with the anonymous letter. Yes. Did he say who handled the letter before him? His secretary. Did she see the envelope? Yes. Did she remember anything? She remembered that Bell's secretary's initials were not on the envelope. I nodded. Mail received in his office normally gets initialed. Correct. Except this one, correct. So it bypassed ordinary office handling.
Yeah, how?
I thought. Someone put it directly into Bell's hands. Who? We don't know. Good. I frowned. Why is that good? Because we have eliminated the ordinary route. He tapped the envelope. Now we find the extraordinary one. At 9:15, I was standing outside a small copying shop on East 43rd Street. The sign said, Meisen Document Stuvus. It was the sort of place that existed because lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, insurance companies, and people who preferred not to explain themselves occasionally needed 6 copies of something before lunch. I entered. A bell rang. A young man behind the counter looked up. Can I help you? I hope so. That's what we're here for. I showed him my card. His expression changed slightly when he saw the word investigator. Police? No. Good, that sounded sincere. I don't like police. Neither do I when they're in a hurry. He relaxed. I'm looking for a copying order. Date, Monday. Name, possibly Bell. He checked the computer. Arthur Bell? Maybe. He typed nothing. Try Reed. He typed again. Nothing. Try Harcourt. He looked at me. That's not a client name. I know. He searched anyway. Nothing. I leaned over the counter. Can you search by job number? Yes. Who has access? Manager, is he? Back. Get him. I smiled. Please. That worked. The manager came out a minute later. His name was Walter Price. He was 50, wore thick glasses, and had the expression of a man who had spent 20 years watching other people forget what they had asked him to copy. What can I do? I'm looking for a document order from Monday. Client, unknown. Description, several pages, possibly an old property agreement. He shook his head. That doesn't narrow it down. What would? Job number. Don't have it. Client name? Don't have that either. Then you don't have much. I have this. I put the envelope on the counter. His eyes moved to it. He did not touch it. Did you make that? No. Do you recognize it? He looked again. No. I watched his face. He was lying, not badly, but enough. Mr. Price, yes? Someone had this envelope made here. I said I don't recognize it. You did. And I meant it. I opened my notebook. Monday. Between 9 and noon. Busy. One customer ordered copies of an old business agreement. He stared. Maybe. Then you remember. I remember hundreds. Was another document prepared at the same time? That stopped him. What document? That's what I'm asking. He looked toward the back room, then back at me. Who are you working for? Nero Wolfe. The effect was immediate. He sighed. You should have said that first. Why? Because then I'd know you weren't wasting my time. I've been accused of worse. He opened a drawer. I can't give you the client's name. I didn't ask for it. What do you want? The job. He pulled out a paper log. Monday, 10:17. His finger moved down the page. 3 copies of a partnership agreement. How old? Original document looked old. Who brought it? A man. Name? No. Description? Grey coat, dark hat. 40 maybe. Else? He asked for 2 things. I leaned forward. What? Copies of the agreement, and a separate page enlarged. Which page? Page 4. Why? He said the signatures were difficult to read. Was that all? Price shook his head. He also asked us to prepare a blank cover sheet matching the original document. I stared. A cover sheet? Yes. Why? He said he wanted the copies to look as though they belonged with the original. I felt the case shift. Did he provide another document? Yes. What? A ledger page. I stopped writing. A ledger, 1 page, old, very. What did it contain? Numbers. What kind? Property account numbers. Did you copy it? No. Why? The customer told us not to. Then what happened? He took it. Immediately? Yes. At the same time? Yes. I looked at the envelope. Was the envelope prepared here? Price nodded. Yes. What was put inside? Copies of the agreement. Which agreement? He hesitated. The Bell-Reed partnership agreement. My stomach tightened. You're sure? Yes. What about the ledger page? He took it. Did he put it in the envelope? No. Why not? He said it wasn't part of the delivery. I closed the notebook. Who was the delivery to? Price looked at me. Jonathan Reed. I returned to the brownstone at 11. Wolfe was in the dining room. Fritz had prepared roast chicken with a sauce involving mushrooms, and something else that Wolfe would not identify until the second serving. I waited until Wolfe had finished. Then I told him about Mason Document Services. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, Interesting. You don't sound surprised. I am not. The envelope contained copies of an old partnership agreement. Yes. The ledger page was separate. Yes. The same person prepared both. Yes. The envelope was addressed to Reed. Was it? I looked at him. Bell was instructed to deliver it. That was not my question. I took out the envelope. There was no addressee on the front. Only a handwritten instruction attached to the letter. Give this to Reed personally. Wolfe pointed. That is an instruction. Yes, it is not an address. No. So the envelope itself was never required to reach Reed. I stared. It only had to reach Bell. Exactly. I sat. Then the envelope was bait. Yes, for Bell, no. For us, no. Then who? Wolfe looked at the document. Someone who wanted us to believe the old partnership agreement mattered. It doesn't? It matters enormously. Then why say it was bait? Because the document is genuine. That doesn't make sense. It does if the document is genuine but irrelevant to the theft. I thought about it. The envelope was real. Yes. The agreement was real. Yes. The ledger page was real. Yes. But the thief wanted us to concentrate on the agreement. So what was he actually after? Wolfe looked at me. The ledger. I sat back. The ledger page? No. The whole ledger. Yes. But Price, said the man, brought only one page. He brought one page to the copying shop. Why? To prove what the ledger contained. To whom? To himself. I stared. Wolfe continued. He did not need a copy of the ledger. He needed to identify it. Then he went after the original. Yes, where was it? Reed's office. Why? Because the Harcourt file was there. I shook my head. Wait. I stood and walked to the window. If the ledger was in Reed's office, why didn't we find it? Because you were looking for the Harcourt file. And the file was missing. Yes. So someone removed the ledger at the same time. Not necessarily. Then when? Wolfe looked at the clock. During the 40 minutes, I turned. How do you know? Because that is the only period in which our thief could remove it without creating a second mystery. I returned to my chair. Why would he need the ledger? Because the ledger contains the fourth transfer. The transfer Reed said had never been cancelled. Correct. Then the ledger proves something. Yes. What? Ownership. At 12:30, I was back at Bellamy, Reed and Price. I asked for Linda Cole. She was in the records room. Do you keep accounting ledgers separately from property files? Some. Where? Depots. Harcourt. She frowned. Why? Because I'm asking. She went to a shelf. There were 3. Were 2 now. What happened to the third? I thought Mr. Avery had it. When? Last month. Which one? The property ledger. What years old? How old? 30 years. Who used it? Mr. Reed. Mr. Avery. Yes. Mr. Morrow. Possibly. Did Bell ever use it? She thought. Years ago. I felt the same cold sensation I'd had when she mentioned Bell's familiarity with the filing system. Where was it kept? In the bottom cabinet. The locked one? Yes. Why didn't you mention this yesterday? You didn't ask about ledgers. Fair enough. Was the ledger there when you checked yesterday? She shook her head. No. When did you last see it? 3 weeks ago. Who had it? Avery. Why audit? Did he return it? I assumed so. Did you check? No. Who could remove it without your knowledge? Anyone with a key. Who had keys? She gave me the list. Reed. Margaret. Linda Morrow. Then she added, Mr. Avery had temporary access. When? During the audit. When did that end? Last week. Did he return his key? She hesitated. I don't know. I smiled. That's becoming a popular answer. Thomas Avery was in his office. He looked up when I entered. You again. Me again. I've answered your questions. Not all of them. I don't know what else I can say. Where is the Harcourt ledger? His face went blank. What ledger? The property ledger. I don't know. Did you have it during the audit? Did you return it? I believe so. To whom? I don't remember. Where? No. When? Last week. Which day? He hesitated. Thursday. Who received it? I said I don't remember. You said you believed you returned it. Yes. That's not the same thing. He looked annoyed. I was busy. Did you take it to the records room? Probably. Probably? Yes. Did you hand it to Linda? I don't know. Did you leave it on Reed's desk? I don't know. Did you give it to Morrow? No. How do you know it? I remember. I smiled. That's interesting. What? Everyone's remembering things today. He looked at me. What do you mean? Nothing. I left. Wolfe was waiting when I returned. Well? The ledger is missing. Yes. Sir Avery had it. Yes. Do you believe me? No. Why? Because he can't say where. That is insufficient. He also knew about the fourth transfer. Yes. He knew Reed's private chain. Yes. He knew the filing system. Yes. He had access to the ledger. Yes. So Avery is our man. Wolfe shook his head. No. I groaned. Not again. You are confusing access with knowledge. He had both. Not necessarily. Then what are we missing? Wolfe picked up the copying shop receipt. This. The receipt showed 2 services. Partnership agreement, 3 copies. Ledger page enlargement. Underneath was a handwritten job number. I examined it. What about it? The 2 documents were not copied under the same instruction. What? Look. He pointed to the times. 10:17, then 10:41. I stared. 24 minutes apart. Yes. Same customer? Yes. Why would he wait 24 minutes? He did not. Then he returned. With the ledger page. Yes. Why? Because he did not possess the page when he first arrived. I understood. He obtained it somewhere. Yes. Before 1041. Yes, from where Wolfe smiled. Now you are asking the right question. I looked at the receipt again. The partnership agreement had been copied at 10:17. The ledger page had been brought 24 minutes later. That meant the customer had already begun his preparation before the 40-minute window. The theft at Reed's office had not been spontaneous. It had been planned around something obtained earlier, I said. The ledger was already in his possession before Bell arrived. Perhaps. Then why did we assume it disappeared during the window? Because the Harcourt file disappeared then. I looked at him. Two things. Yes. The file and the ledger, possibly. One was missing before the other, perhaps. How do we know? We do not. He folded his hands. That is why we must reconstruct the morning before 11:20. I stared at the receipt. 10:17, yes. Who could have gone to the copying shop at 10:17? Anyone, but not Bell. Why? He was at his office. Was he? I stopped. You checked? No. Then check. Bell's office was closed. His secretary told me he had gone to a bank again. I asked what time he had left. 10. What time did he return? 11:30. Was he at his desk between 10:17 and 10:41? No. That was enough. I asked for the address of the bank. Then I called it. Bell had been there. But not between 10 and 11. He had left at 10:12. He had not returned until 11:28. That gave him more than enough time to visit Mason Document Services. I went back to Wolfe. He could have done it. Wolfe nodded. Yes. So Bell prepared the agreement. Possibly. Obtained the ledger page. Possibly returned to his office. Yes. Then went to Reed's office at 11:20. Yes. And used the 40-minute window to remove the original ledger. That is one theory. It fits. Too neatly. I sat. Why? Because Bell was the man we were supposed to suspect. I thought of the anonymous letter, the altered appointment, the envelope, the 40-minute window, Bell arriving early, Bell knowing the filing system, Bell having a reason to want the Harcourt records. It did fit, too well. I looked at Wolfe. Then the question is whether Bell knew he was being used. Wolfe nodded. Exactly. And if he didn't, then he is the perfect cover. And if he did, he is the thief. I stood. I'll bring him. No. Why? Because we have not asked the most important question. What? Wolfe picked up the enlarged ledger page. He had obtained a copy from the copying shop. At first glance it was nothing but columns of numbers, dates and initials. Then he pointed to one line. Read. I did. Transfer now for Harcourt property. Then a date. Then two sets of initials. J.R. And beneath them, T.A. Jonathan Reed, Thomas Avery. I looked at Wolfe. Avery. Yes. The fourth transfer was signed by Reed Avery, apparently. Then Avery knew. Yes. And Bell? Look again. I did. At the bottom of the page, almost hidden beneath a faded accounting notation, was another set of initials. A.B. Arthur Bell. I stared. Bell signed it too. Wolfe nodded. So all three men knew about the transfer, and one of them copied the agreement. Yes. One of them removed the ledger. Yes. And one of them sent Bell to Reed's office. I looked at him. Could they all be working together? No. Why not? Because one of them has been trying to make the others look guilty. He placed the ledger page beside the envelope. The partnership agreement was prepared at 10:17. The ledger page at 10:41. Yes. Then someone knew exactly what to copy. Yes. And exactly what to remove. Yes. I looked at the clock. 5:43. Who? Wolfe's expression was calm. The man who knew the schedule. Margaret, no. Avery, no. Nolan, no. Bell? Wolfe did not answer. Instead, he turned the ledger page over. There was writing on the back. A note in pencil. 6 words. Ask Avery who paid for the copies. I read it twice. Then looked at Wolfe. The copying shop didn't charge Bell. No. Who paid? Cash. Anonymous? No. Who? Wolfe's eyes narrowed. The bill was charged to Bellamy, Reed and Price. I stared. Then somebody used Reed's own office account. Yes. That narrows it down. No. He looked toward the door. It widens it. How? Because the person who ordered the copies did not merely know the company. He placed his finger on the receipt. He knew which account to use. I understood. The copying order was authorized. Yes, which means someone inside Reed's office paid for the preparation. Correct. And the ledger page was copied after the partnership agreement. Yes, which means the person had access to both. Wolfe nodded. Now we are close. To Avery? To the reason Avery was rehearsed. I looked at him. You think Nolan was told the story by Avery? No. Then who? Wolfe closed his eyes. The person who knew what Nolan would say. I waited. He opened his eyes. Margaret Lane. I frowned. Why? Because she knew every change to Reed's schedule. She could have arranged the 40-minute window. Yes. She knew about the private change. Yes. She knew where the files were. Yes. She knew the copying account. Yes. And she could have rehearsed Nolan. Yes. I smiled. Then we have her. Wolfe shook his head. No. I stared at him. What now? The envelope. I looked at it. What about it? Where was it supposed to go? To Reed? No. Then where? Wolfe's voice was quiet. Into the wrong drawer. And suddenly I remembered something. The envelope had never been addressed to Reed. It had only been instructed to reach Hims, which meant somebody had needed Bell to carry it into the office. Somebody had needed Bell to place it somewhere. Somebody had needed a man who believed he was delivering evidence to open the very drawer that contained the real target. I looked at Wolfe. You think Bell was supposed to put the envelope in the records cabinet? Yes. And then the thief would have a reason to open it. Yes. But Bell never did. No. Because we stopped him. Correct. Then the thief had to find another way to reach the cabinet. Wolfe nodded. Which explains the 40 minutes. I looked at the sealed envelope. It had been bait, not because of what was inside, because of where it was supposed to go. The old agreement was genuine. The ledger page was genuine. The instructions were false. The appointment was false. But the objective was real. Someone wanted the ledger, and someone had arranged an elaborate sequence to make certain that when the theft was discovered, everyone would ask why Arthur Bell had arrived 40 minutes too soon. I looked at Wolfe. Then we have been watching the clock. Yes. Instead of the drawer. Yes. And the drawer was never the real hiding place. Wolfe gave me the faintest smile. No. He picked up the receipt. The real hiding place was the man who knew which drawer to open. Outside, the city was darkening into evening. Inside, Wolfe's orchids stood motionless behind their glass, bright and silent. I had the uncomfortable feeling that one of our 4 witnesses had just become much more dangerous. And I also knew that Wolfe had not yet told me which one. That was usually a sign that he already knew. Chapter 6. The appointment that changed. By Saturday morning, the appointment at noon had become more suspicious than the missing ledger. This was because the appointment had never really been at noon, at least not all morning. The distinction mattered. A man can be forgiven for arriving 40 minutes early. He may have misread a note, misunderstood a telephone message, or suffered from the sort of optimism that makes some people believe punctuality is a form of virtue. But when an appointment is moved from one time to another, and the movement creates exactly the interval required for a theft, coincidence becomes a word used by people who have run out of explanations. I had spent enough years with Nero Wolfe to know that he had little use for coincidence. He had even less use for breakfast before 8. At 8:15 I entered the office with coffee and found him already seated behind his desk, reading 3 sheets of paper with the expression of a man who had discovered that the English language contained too many words. You're early, I said. He looked up. You are late. I came in at 8. Exactly, that's not late. It is late for coffee. I put the cup beside him. He ignored it. I sat. The appointment. Yes. You've been staring at those papers for 20 minutes. 32. What are they? Copies of Reed's appointment records. Anything new? Everything. That was encouraging, which means nothing is new. The meaning is new. He selected one sheet. This is the office diary. Yes, this is Margaret Lane's personal notebook. Yes, this is Reed's calendar. Yes, and this is the telephone log. I looked at the 4 sheets. They all agree. No, they all say noon. They all say noon eventually. I leaned forward. That was Wolfe's favorite kind of sentence. It meant he had found something. Eventually. At 10:47, Reed's calendar showed 11:45. Then Margaret told us that. At 11:10, it went back to noon, yes. At noon, the meeting was still noon. Correct. So what is wrong? Wolfe lifted his eyes. Everything after 10:47. I waited. He said. We have assumed the first appointment was at 11:45 because that is what the witnesses told us. Yes. We have assumed Bell was instructed to arrive at 11:20 because someone wanted him there before the meeting. Yes. And we have assumed the appointment was later changed noon to conceal the theft. Yes. All three assumptions are wrong. I stared at him. Which one is right? Bell was instructed to arrive at 11:20. That sounds like one of our assumptions. The distinction is important. Why? Because Bell was not told about the appointment. I frowned. He thought Reed summoned him. Yes. But the invitation was false. Yes. Then how did the criminal know Bell would come? He did not. That stopped me. Then the whole 40-minute scheme was a gamble. No, Wolfe reached for his coffee at last. The criminal knew Bell would come because Bell had already been expecting to meet Reed at noon. Yes, so the invitation only had to move him. Precisely. From noon to 11:20. Precisely. I sat back. That was the first clean explanation I had heard all morning. Bell had not been created as a visitor. He had been redirected. The appointment existed before the deception. The false invitation merely changed Bell's behavior. Wolfe continued. That is why Bell was useful, because he was telling the truth. Yes. I smiled. That is rather elegant. Most successful lies require a truth underneath them. Whose truth? Bell's. At 9, I went to Reed's office. Margaret Lane was at her desk. She looked at me with the guarded patience of someone who had already been asked too many questions by a private detective who refused to accept the first answer. Mr. Goodwin. Miss Lane. Mr. Wolfe wants something? Yes. What? The original appointment card. Her expression changed. What appointment card? I've seen it. Where? With Mr. Reed. Did he keep it? I don't know. Can you find out? I can ask. Ask. She went into Reed's office. I waited. She returned carrying a small leather appointment book. Mr. Reed says he has no card. I didn't ask about a card. She looked at me. You asked for the original appointment card. Yes. Then why did you ask me for it? Because I wanted to see whether you would bring me the book. She stared. I smiled. Don't take it personally. I don't. She sat down. Mr. Goodwin, I have been cooperative. I know. Then why are you treating me as though I am hiding something? Because everybody is. She looked tired. Mr. Wolfe thinks I'm involved. No. Then. He thinks you know something. That is not the same thing. No. She looked toward Reed's closed door. What do you want? The truth about the appointment. I've already told you. She sighed. Mr. Reed originally scheduled Bell for noon, yes. At 10:47, he moved it to 11:45. Why? He said he wanted the meeting over with before lunch. Did he? No. How do you know? Because at 11:10 he changed it back. Why? He received a telephone call. From whom? His lawyer. About Harcourt? I don't know. You said yesterday that you knew nothing about the call. I said I didn't know what they discussed. Did Reed say anything afterward? Yes. What? He told me to leave Bell at noon. Those words? Yes, exactly. Yes, I studied her. What did he say before that? Nothing. You were in the room? Yes. You heard the call? No, I stepped out. How long? 5 minutes. When? I looked at my notebook. 10:40, yes. So you left before the appointment was changed? Yes. Then how did you know Reed changed it at 10:47? He told me. When? After the call. At 10:47? I don't know. You said he changed it at 10:47. That is what the calendar shows, not what you heard. She stared at me. I let the silence work. Mr. Goodwin, yes? Are you accusing me of lying? No, then what? Trying to find out whose clock you are using. Her eyes narrowed. Mine? Good, I stood. One more thing. What? Who told you Bell would arrive at 11:20? She went very still. I never said he would. No. I smiled. That's why I asked. At 10:30 I was back in the brownstone. Wolfe was in the orchid room. He stood beside the long bench, examining a plant with a magnifying glass. She lied. 10:40. He lowered the glass. How do you know? She said she left Reed's office at 10:40. Yes, the telephone log shows Reed's call began at 10:41. Wolfe nodded. So she could not have left before it. She could have. No. Why? The office telephone is on the desk. She could have stepped out after the call began. She said she left before it. Ah, exactly. I followed him back into the office. Then she knew about the call. Yes. Did she know about the fourth transfer? Yes. Could she have ordered the copying? Yes. Could she have arranged Bell's early arrival? Yes. Could she have altered the appointment? Yes. Could she have rehearsed Nolan? Yes. I waited. She dilf-sat. No, I groaned. You've made me say it too many times. It is good for your discipline. Then tell me why not. Because Margaret has a flaw. What's the flaw? She is too careful. That's a flaw. For this crime, yes. He reached for the papers. Margaret Lane keeps records. She remembers instructions. She protects Reed's schedule. She would never change the calendar in a way that could later be traced to her, unless she wanted us to notice. No. Then why would she lie about the telephone call? Because she is protecting someone. I stared at him. Who? That is the useful question. We went to Reed's lawyer, Daniel Porter, at 11:15. Porter was a narrow-faced man with white hair and the patient manner of someone accustomed to explaining unpleasant truths to wealthy clients. Wolfe asked one question. Mr. Porter, did you telephone Jonathan Reed yesterday morning? Yes. When? 10:41. What did you discuss? The Harcourt transfer. Specifically? Porter looked at Reed. Reed nodded. Porter said, the fourth transfer had not been cancelled. I looked at Wolfe. Why was Reed under the impression that it had been? Because Mr. Avery told him so. When? Several months ago. Did you know otherwise? Yes. Why did you call yesterday? Because I found the original memorandum. Where? In my files. Who knew you had it? Porter hesitated. Mr. Reed. Anyone else? Not that I know. Did you send it to Reed? No. Why? I wanted to discuss it first. Did you tell Reed to secure his ledger? Yes. Did he? I assume so. Did he tell you he would? Wolfe nodded. One more question. Porter waited. Did you tell anyone in Reed's office about the memorandum? No. Thank you. We left. In the car, I said. That changes things. Yes. The lawyer found the original memorandum. Yes. And called Reed. Yes. At 10:41. Yes. Margaret knew about the call. Possibly. Avery knew about the transfer. Yes. Someone knew the ledger was suddenly important. Yes. And then the appointment was changed. Yes. I looked at Wolfe. So the thief did not plan the theft weeks ago. Wolfe said nothing. Did he? No. The plan began after the lawyer called. Perhaps. Then the criminal had to act quickly. Yes. Which means the copying order at 10:17 happened before the lawyer's call. Wolfe looked at me. Exactly. I stopped. The car continued through traffic. The copying order came first. Yes. Then the lawyer called. Yes. Then the appointment changed. Yes. Then Bell was redirected. Yes. Then the ledger disappeared. Yes. I stared ahead. Then the person who ordered the copies already knew the fourth transfer mattered before Porter called. Wolfe smiled. Now we have reached the center. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe asked me to lay out the evidence. I placed the items across his desk. The appointment card, the office calendar, Margaret's notes, the telephone log, the copying receipt, the enlarged ledger, Bell's envelope, the anonymous instruction. Wolfe looked at them, arranged them by time. I did. 10:17. Copying order for the partnership agreement. 10:41. Porter's call to Reed. 10:47. Reed's appointment temporarily moved. 11:10. Appointment returned to noon. 11:20. Bell arrives. 11:25. Margaret enters records. Noon. Reed discovers the Harcourt records are missing. Wolfe looked at the sequence. Now remove everything that happened after the crime. I remove the discovery. Now remove anything that depends on Bell's statement. I remove the invitation. Now remove anything that depends on Margaret's statement. I removed her account. Now remove anything that depends on Avery's statement. I removed his account. Now what remains? I looked. Copying order. Yes. Lawyer's call. Yes. Calendar change. Yes. Bell's arrival. Yes. That's it. No. Wolfe pointed to the appointment card. The card. I picked it up. What about it? Look at the ink. I examined the handwriting. Reed's handwriting. The time was written as 11:20. But the original appointment had been noon. Then I saw it. The ink used for the time was darker. Changed. Yes. After the card was written, yes. Who changed it? That is not the important question. Why not? Because the time was not changed to 11:20. I looked again. The original writing beneath the alteration was faint. It had been written as 12. The altered figures made it look like 11:20. Someone changed noon to 11:20. Yes. And the calendar was changed to 11:45. Yes. Then 2 times were altered. Correct. Why? Wolfe's eyes were bright. Because the criminal needed 2 different witnesses to remember 2 different things. I understood. Bell needed to believe 11:20. The office needed to believe 11:45. The real appointment remained noon. The false invitation changed Bell. Yes. The calendar changed the office. Yes. And the 40-minute interval existed only in Bell's version. Correct, I said. So the thief didn't need Bell to lie. No, he needed Bell to tell the truth. Exactly. Bell really believed he had been summoned. Yes. He really arrived at 11:20. Yes. He really had the altered card. Yes. And he really believed Reed had changed the appointment. Yes. So when we questioned him, he gave us exactly the testimony the thief wanted. Wolfe nodded. The best witness is often the innocent one. At 3, we summoned Arthur Bell. He arrived looking exhausted. Wolfe asked him to sit. Mr. Bell, I want you to describe exactly how you received the appointment card. I told Mr. Goodwin. Tell me again. Bell took a breath. I was at my office at about 10:15 when a messenger arrived. Who? I don't know. Young, dark coat, grey cap. Did he give you the envelope? No. What did he give you else? An instruction. What did it say? That, Mr. Reed wanted me at his office immediately. Did you call Reed? No. Why? Because the card looked authentic. Did you examine the handwriting? Did it look like Reed's? Yes. Did you notice the time? 11:20. Did you notice anything unusual? Bell hesitated. The ink. I looked at Wolfe. What about it? It looked darker than the rest. Why didn't you mention that before? I thought it was because the card was old. Wolfe asked. Did the messenger remain? No. Did he say who sent him? No. Did you tell your secretary you were leaving? Yes. Did you tell her why? I said Reed had moved our appointment to 11:20? Yes. Did she question it? No. Did anyone else hear? My partner. Who? James Harlow. Could he confirm it? Yes. Wolfe nodded. Thank you. Bell stood. Mr. Wolfe. No. Bell looked relieved. Then why do I feel that I am? Because you have discovered that being innocent does not make you irrelevant. Bell left. I looked at Wolfe. That confirms it. What? The criminal knew Bell would accept the card. Yes. Because Reed's handwriting was genuine. Yes. How did he appoint book? Who had access? Margaret. Nolan. Bell. Yes. Then we're back where we started. No. Wolfe pointed to the card. Look at the alteration. I did. The figures were written over Reed's original time. Yes. The person who altered it knew Reed's handwriting. Yes. And knew how he numbers. Yes. I examined the card. The altered 11:20 was convincing. But there was something odd about the two. The one had been formed differently from Reed's usual figure. I said. It's not Reed's handwriting. No, but you said the card was authentic. The card is authentic. Meaning? The card was written by Reed. The time was altered. Yes, by someone else. Yes. I looked at Wolfe. Who? Someone who had access to the card after Reed wrote it. Margaret, perhaps. Avera. Nolan, perhaps. Bell, perhaps. Wolfe shook his head. Not Bell. Why? Because Bell did not need to alter it. Someone altered it for him. Yes. To make him arrive early. Yes. Then who had reason to make Bell arrive early? The person who needed Bell to be at Reed's office at 11:20, which was the thief. Yes. I sat. Then why move Reed's appointment to 11:45? Wolfe smiled. That is the question that matters. At 4:30 we returned to Reed's office. This time Wolfe came with me. The office was quiet. Margaret looked up. Mr. Wolfe, Miss Lane. He placed the appointment book on her desk. I want to see the page for yesterday. She handed it over. Wolfe examined it. Then he asked. Who changed this? Margaret said. Mr. Reed. At 10:47? Yes. He scowled. He wanted to meet Bell earlier. Why? I don't know. Did he tell you to alter the calendar? Yes. Did you? Yes. Then why did you tell Mr. Goodwin yesterday that you did not remember the change? She froze. I was confused. No, Wolfe's voice remained calm. You were instructed to say that? Margaret looked at him. By whom? Wolfe turned the page. That is what I am asking, nothing. Was it Mr. Reed? No. Mr. Avery? No answer. Mr. Nolan? No. Mr. Bell? No. Then who? She looked down. I can't. Wolfe nodded. Good. I frowned. Good, she has just told us something useful. What? She is afraid. Margaret looked up. I am not afraid. You are. No. You are protecting someone. She swallowed. Wolfe leaned forward. Miss Lane, the person you are protecting is not the thief. Her face changed. I saw it. So did Wolfe. Who is it? I asked. She shook her head. Wolfe said, Mr. Avery, no. Mr. Nolan, no. Mr. Reed. She looked at the floor. Wolfe said, yourself? Margaret closed her eyes. Yes, there it was. The first confession. But Wolfe was not finished. Why? She opened her eyes. Because I changed the appointment. I looked at her. On whose instruction? She hesitated. Mr. Reed's. That's not true. Her face went white. How do you know? Because Reed was on the telephone with his lawyer. She stared. You could not have received the instruction then. I received it later. When? At 10:47. From whom? She said nothing. Wolfe waited. Finally she whispered. Mr. Avery. I felt my pulse quicken. Avery told you to move the appointment? Yes. Why? He said, Mr. Reed wanted it changed, did he? I thought so. You did not ask Reed? No. Why? Because Avery had been given authority during the audit. Authority to change appointments? No. Then why did you believe him? She looked at Wolfe. Because he showed me a note. What note? A note in Mr. Reed's handwriting. I felt the room tighten. The appointment card. No. She shook her head. Another note. Where is it? I don't know. Who had it? Avery. Wolfe leaned back. Now we were getting somewhere. What did the note say? Margaret closed her eyes. Move Bell's meeting to 11:45. And afterward? At 11:10, Avery came back. What did he say? That Mr. Reed had changed his mind. Back to noon? Yes. He said the lawyer had called. I looked at Wolfe. That was the missing piece. Avery had known about the call before Margaret did. He had used the call to make his second instructions sound legitimate. But there was still a problem. How did Avery know about the lawyer's call? Margaret looked at me. I don't know, Wolfe asked. Where was Avery at 10:41? She hesitated. In the corridor, near Reed's office. Yes. Could he hear the call? I don't know. Could he? She nodded. Yes, Wolfe stood. Thank you. Margaret looked frightened. Mr. Wolfe, yes? Am I guilty? No, she breathed out. You followed an instruction you believed came from your employer. Yes, but you made one mistake. What? You assumed the person giving you the instruction was telling the truth. She lowered her head. Wolfe turned to me. Archie, yes? Find Thomas Avery. We found him at his apartment. He was packing a suitcase. That was not proof of guilt, but it was proof that he had excellent instincts. He saw us in the doorway and stopped. Mr. Goodwin, Avery, is there a problem? Several. He put down a shirt. What do you want? You have nothing more to say. That's unfortunate. Why? Because we have found the ledger. His face changed, only for a second, but I saw it. So did Wolfe, standing behind me. Where? Avery asked. Wolfe answered. That is what you are going to tell us. Avery stared at him. I don't know what you mean. The ledger was not stolen at 11:20. Avery said nothing. It was removed earlier. Still nothing. Before Bell arrived. Avery's eyes flickered. Wolfe continued. The 40-minute window was not the theft. Avery looked at me. It was the cover story. I smiled. Now you understand. Avery sat. You don't have proof. Not yet. Then you have nothing. Wolfe stepped into the apartment. You ordered copies of the partnership agreement. No. The copying shop has the receipt. I didn't. You brought a ledger page there. No. You knew about the fourth transfer. Everyone did. You knew the lawyer would call. I did not. You told Margaret to change Bell's appointment. No. You told Nolan what sequence to remember. Avery's face tightened. I did not. Wolfe nodded. Then you have a simple defense. Avery looked at him. What? Tell us where you were between 10:17 and 11. Avery smiled. I was here. At your apartment? Yes. Can anyone confirm it? No. Wolfe smiled. Excellent. Avery frowned. Why? Because you have just given us the one answer we needed. He turned to me. Archie, yes? Call Kramer. Avery stood. Wait. Wolfe stopped. Avery looked at him. You said the ledger was removed before Bell arrived. Yes. Then why did you need Bell to arrive early? Wolfe's eyes were cold. Because the theft was not the only thing that had to be hidden. What else? The ledger was not the final objective. Avery went still. I looked at Wolfe. What was? Wolfe said nothing. Avery's face had lost its color. He knew. I knew. But Wolfe wanted him to say it. Finally, Avery whispered. The transfer. Wolfe nodded. Exactly. The fourth transfer. There. Explain. Avery sat again. The ledger proves the transfer. Yes. But the transfer was fraudulent. Yes. Reed knew. Yes. I knew. Yes. And Bell knew. Yes. Then why? Wolfe looked at him. Because one of you intended to use the fraudulent transfer to claim the property. Avery stared. Who? Wolfe did not answer. He only said, that is what Chapter 7 will settle. I looked at him. I knew Wolfe well enough to recognize the expression. He had found the final piece. The appointment had changed. The invitation had been forged. The envelope had been planted. The ledger had disappeared. Bell had arrived early. But none of those things had been the crime. They had been choreography. The real crime was older. The 40 minutes had merely provided the stage. And somewhere inside that old property agreement was a name that would turn the entire case around. Chapter 7. Wolfe counts the minutes. By 6 o'clock Saturday evening, Nero Wolfe had converted the office into a courtroom without benefit of judge, jury, or furniture suitable for either. Inspector Kramer occupied the largest chair because he had the largest coat and because he regarded Wolfe's smaller chairs as a personal insult. I sat on the edge of the desk with my notebook. Wolfe was behind his desk, and on the blotter before him lay 7 objects arranged in a straight line. The appointment card, the copying receipt, the anonymous invitation, the old partnership agreement, the enlarged ledger page, a brass key, and a watch. Kramer looked at them with the expression of a policeman who had been summoned to a lecture and was hoping it would become an arrest. You said you had the whole thing, he growled. I have most of it. Most? The rest will be supplied by Mr. Avery. Avery sat opposite Kramer. He had stopped looking at the door. That was a good sign. When a guilty man stops looking at the door, it generally means he has begun looking for another escape. Wolfe touched the appointment card. Let us begin with the 40 minutes. Kramer sighed. I've heard about the 40 minutes. You have heard a story about them. You have not heard the truth. Then give me the truth. Wolfe nodded. At 10:17, copies of an old partnership agreement were ordered. Kramer glanced at Avery. Avery said nothing. At 10:41, Wolfe continued. Mr. Porter telephoned Mr. Reed about the fourth transfer of the Harcourt property. Kramer said, the fraudulent transfer, yes, which Avery knew about, yes. Avery shifted. Wolfe ignored him. At 10:47, Margaret Lane altered Mr. Reed's appointment calendar. At 11:10, she altered it again. At 11:20, Arthur Bell arrived, Kramer said. So far we know, no. Wolfe's voice sharpened. So far you know the visible sequence. He tapped the desk. The invisible sequence began earlier, Kramer grunted. Go on. Wolfe folded his hands. The culprit knew the ledger contained evidence of the fourth transfer. He also knew that the ledger was kept in a locked cabinet in the records room. Kramer looked at Avery. How did he know? Because he had used the cabinet. Who? Wolfe did not answer. That is the question. I had spent most of my adult life watching Wolfe turn facts into weapons. He did it now without raising his voice. At 10:17, he said, the culprit obtained copies of the partnership agreement. Kramer said, from the copying shop. Yes. Why? To establish which page of the ledger mattered. The ledger page was copied too at 10:41. Then he had the page. No! Kramer frowned. He brought the page to the shop at 10:41. Yes. So he already had it. Correct. Then he had the ledger before 10:41. Correct. Kramer looked at Avery. You had the ledger, Avery said. I had access to it. Same thing for the moment. No, Wolfe said. Kramer looked at him. Why not? Because possession and access are different. The culprit had access first. Possession came later. I understood. The ledger wasn't stolen at 11:20. No, it was removed early, yes. And the 40-minute window was manufactured afterward. Exactly. Kramer sat back. Then why make Bell come early? Wolfe looked at me. Archie, I said, to create confusion. More precisely, to make everyone think Bell was the reason people were moving around. Yes, Wolfe looked at Kramer. Bell was expected at noon. Someone moved his arrival to 11:20. He entered carrying an envelope and insisting that Reed had summoned him. Margaret, who had already been instructed to alter the calendar, had to deal with him, which created an argument. Yes, an argument outside Reed's office. Yes, while the records room was nearby. Yes, Kramer frowned. Why didn't anyone see the culprit enter the records room? Because no one was looking. Why? Because Bell was. Kramer looked at me. That's what you mean by distraction. Exactly, I said. Wolfe nodded. The criminal did not need Bell to behave foolishly. He needed Bell to behave naturally. Kramer grunted. Bell wasn't acting. No, he really thought Reed had summoned him. Yes, he really believed the appointment had changed. Yes, and when Margaret told him there was no 11:20 appointment, he argued. Exactly, that drew everyone's attention. Yes, and while everyone watched Bell, someone went into the records room. Correct. Kramer looked at Avery again. His jaw tightened. There's still a problem. Wolfe glanced at me. The ledger, what about it? If the culprit removed the original, what happened to the cabinet? Good. Kramer grunted. What's good? Mr. Goodwin has finally noticed the replacement. I looked at Wolfe. You said it was replaced with a harmless duplicate. Yes. Why? Because an empty cabinet would have been noticed. How quickly? Immediately. So the duplicate had to look real. Yes. Did it? At first glance, I remembered the ledger. Its pages had been worn. The binding was cracked. The edges were dark with age. Then what was wrong with it? Wolfe smiled. Nothing that mattered until someone counted. Kramer said, counted what? Pages. He picked up the enlarged ledger sheet. The original ledger contained 73 numbered pages. Kramer looked bored. The duplicate contained 74. I looked at him. Why? Because the culprit did not know the ledger had an unnumbered index sheet. Kramer sat forward. Where was it? In the original. And the duplicate did not have it. That means the replacement was made in a hurry. Yes. Who could make a duplicate that quickly? Someone who had access to the original. Someone in the office. Yes. Kramer turned toward Avery. Avery said, I didn't replace it. Wolfe nodded. Avery looked startled. Kramer said, then why are we looking at him? Because he knows who did. Avery's eyes went to Wolfe. Wolfe said, you were not the hand. No, you were the knowledge. Avery swallowed. What does that mean? You knew the ledger had to disappear. No. You knew about the transfer. Yes. You knew the original agreement existed. Yes. You knew Bell had a reason to come to Reed. Wolfe smiled. You knew enough. Avery looked down. I had the uncomfortable feeling that the truth was close enough to touch. Wolfe reached for the watch. This belonged to Mr. Avery. Avery looked up. Yes. Why does it stop at 11:23? Avery frowned. It doesn't. He took it. The second hand moved. It works. Yes. So Wolfe said. It stopped yesterday. Avery stared at him. I don't remember. At what time? I said I don't know. At 11:23. Avery looked at Kramer. I don't know why. Wolfe nodded. That is the correct answer, Kramer said. Why? Because the watch was not broken. He turned it over. There is dust inside the casing. From the records room? I asked. Yes. Avery said, I haven't been in there. Yesterday? No. At 11:20? No. At 11:23? No. Wolfe looked at him. Then how did dust from the records room enter your watch? Avery stared at the watch. I don't know. Kramer leaned forward. Where did you get the watch? My father. How long have you had it? Years. I looked at Wolfe. He shook his head slightly. The watch was not the answer. It was another piece of choreography. Then Wolfe said something that made the room go quiet. The dust is not the important thing. Kramer frowned. Then why mention it? Because Mr. Avery expects to. Avery's face changed. I saw it. Wolfe saw it. Kramer saw it. Wolfe leaned back. The watch is a false clue. Avery stared at him. You planted it? No. Then someone planted it. Yes. Who? Wolfe's eyes narrowed. The person who wanted me to believe Mr. Avery was inside the records room. Avery looked at me. I told you I wasn't. I know. Then why did you let Wolfe accuse me? Because I wanted to see who was worried. Avery looked away. Kramer said, you're enjoying this. Not particularly. Could have fooled me. Wolfe now turned to the appointment card. The culprit needed Bell to arrive early. He placed the card beside the calendar. But the culprit also needed the office staff to believe Bell was early. Why? Kramer asked. Because otherwise the discrepancy would immediately expose the deception. The card said 11:20. The calendar said 11:45, and the real appointment was noon. Yes, Kramer frowned. That's a lot of times. That was the purpose, I said. 3 versions of the same meeting. Correct. Bell believed 11:20, yes. Margaret believed 11:45, yes. Reed believed noon, yes. That meant everyone had a different reason to think everyone else was wrong. Precisely, Kramer grunted. Confusion. Confusion with a schedule. Wolfe's eyes brightened. The culprit understood that people trust calendars more than memory, and handwriting more than calendars, I said. So he used Reed's handwriting, yes, but he couldn't forge the entire calendar. He did not need to. Only 1 entry, correct, and only 1 card, correct. Then the culprit needed access to Reed's desk, yes. Margaret had it, yes. Nolan had it, yes. Avery had it, yes. Bell didn't, not. Kramer said. Then how do you know which one? Wolfe smiled. Because of the clock. Kramer stared. What clock? The office clock. I looked at him. The wall clock? Yes. What about it? Mr. Nolan told Mr. Goodwin yesterday that when Bell arrived, the office clock showed 11:20. Kramer nodded. So Mr. Nolan was not in the reception area. He could have seen it later. No. Wolfe looked at me. Tell him what you noticed, I thought. I remembered Nolan's statement. He had said, when Bell came in, I looked at the clock. It was 11:20, but I had not thought anything of it. Then it came back. The clock was fast. Kramer frowned. How fast? 3 minutes. Wolfe nodded. The office clock was 3 minutes fast. Kramer looked at him. So Nolan's statement was wrong. Not merely wrong, Wolfe's voice hardened. Impossible. Kramer sat forward. Explain. At 11:20 actual time, the office clock showed 11:23. Yes. Bell entered at 11:20. Yes. So anyone who was looking at the office clock would have seen 11:23. Correct. Unless the clock had been reset. Kramer frowned. Was it? No. How do you know? Because the clock was photographed the previous afternoon during a fire inspection. Wolfe produced a photograph. The office clock showed 3 minutes fast. Kramer examined it. Then Nolan lied. Yes. Maybe he guessed. No. Why not? Because he gave the exact time, I said. He said 11:20. Yes. How could he know it? He had no reason to, unless he knew Bell's scheduled arrival. Exactly. Kramer looked at Nolan's written statement. But someone could have told him. Yes. Then the statement alone doesn't identify the thief. No. Then what does? Wolfe turned the statement over. There was a line on the back. A note in Nolan's handwriting. Clock slow by 3. Kramer stared. What's that? A reminder. Why would he write that? Because he knew the clock was wrong. Everyone could have known. Yes, but only someone inside the office, during the 40-minute window, could have known it had been corrected. Kramer looked at Wolfe. Corrected? Yes. Wolfe pointed to the clock photograph. The clock was 3 minutes fast yesterday morning. He pointed to the current office report. At 11:23, someone adjusted it to the correct time. Kramer said, Who? Wolfe smiled. That is the statement. The room was silent. I said, Someone adjusted the clock during the 40-minute window. Yes. Why? To eliminate the discrepancy. Which discrepancy? The culprit had entered the records room at 11:23. Kramer leaned forward. The clock showed 11:26. Correct. If someone later checked the time, it would prove the culprit had been in the records room at 11:23. Yes. So he corrected the clock. Yes. But why would that matter? Because the duplicate ledger was already in place. Kramer looked at me. The clock adjustment was the final cleanup. Exactly. Wolfe turned to Avery. You knew the clock had been corrected. Avery said nothing. How? Silence. Because you were told. No. By Margaret? No. By Nolan? No. Then by whom? Avery looked toward the window. Wolfe said quietly. By the person who entered the records room. Avery's shoulders dropped. I didn't enter. I know. Then stop saying I did. I am not saying you entered. Wolfe looked at Kramer. I am saying Avery knew because he was outside the room. Kramer said, What? He was the lookout. Avery closed his eyes. That was the first time he looked defeated. Wolfe continued, Mr. Avery did not steal the ledger. Avery opened his eyes. But he knew the theft was happening. Yes. He arranged the copying. Yes. He provided information about the fourth transfer. Yes. But another person entered the records room, Kramer said. Who? Wolfe turned toward the door. Margaret Lane, Avery whispered. No. Wolfe nodded. Yes. Margaret was already in the hallway. She had been brought back by Kramer earlier. She entered now. Her face was pale. Kramer stood. Miss Lane. She looked at Wolfe. He said, You adjusted the clock. She closed her eyes. Yes, stared. Why? Because I was told to. By whom? She looked at Avery. He shook his head. Don't, Wolfe said. Tell the truth, Margaret whispered. Mr. Nolan. The room went still. Kramer said, George Nolan? She nodded. He told me Bell's arrival would cause trouble. How did he know? I don't know. You changed the appointment. Yes. You altered the calendar. Yes. You entered the records room. Yes. Replaced the ledger. She began to cry. Yes, Kramer said. Where is the original? I don't know. Who took it? I know, Wolfe said. You do. She looked at him. He said it was only for protection. Mr. Nolan, Kramer swore. Wolfe remained calm. Where did he take it? Margaret shook her head. I don't know. Did he tell you? Yes. Where? She whispered. The old file room beneath the building. I looked at Wolfe. The basement. He nodded. Yes. Kramer reached for the telephone. Then let's go. Wolfe raised one hand. No. Kramer stopped. Why? Because the ledger is not there. How do you know? Because Mr. Nolan would never put it there. Then where? Wolfe looked at me. Archie. Yes? Do you remember what Nolan said about the office clock? I thought. He said it was slow by 3. No. He said it was fast. No. I searched my memory, then it came. Nolan had said, the clock was right when I left. I looked at Wolfe. He didn't say when he left. Correct. And that means? He had been inside after the clock was corrected. Yes. But he claimed he wasn't. Yes. I looked at Kramer. The clock was the trap. Wolfe nodded. Exactly. Kramer said. Then Nolan was inside during the 40 minutes. Yes. And he knew the exact time the clock was corrected. Yes. Then he's the thief. Wolfe looked at the door. Not quite. Why not? Because the person who stole the ledger had one purpose. What? To obtain the fourth transfer. Why? Because the transfer gives ownership. To whom? Wolfe's expression became very cold. That is what we will settle tomorrow. Kramer stared at him. Tomorrow? Yes. You have the thief? No. You have the accomplice? Yes. No. Then what the hell do you have? Wolfe reached for the brass key. The key to the place where the ledger was actually hidden. He placed it in Kramer's hand. Kramer looked at it. Where does it go? Wolfe said. To the 4th drawer. I stared. The wrong drawer. Wolfe nodded. The drawer Bell was supposed to open. And suddenly the whole affair made sense. The envelope, the appointment, the false invitation, the altered calendar, the 40-minute distraction, the missing ledger, the duplicate, the clock, the key. They had not been separate tricks. They were a single mechanism. And tomorrow, Wolfe intended to put every piece of it in front of the man who had built it. Chapter 8. The appointment at noon. At 11 o'clock Sunday morning, Nero Wolfe's office contained more people than Wolfe considered compatible with civilization. Inspector Kramer stood near the fireplace with his arms folded. Arthur Bell occupied the chair nearest the door, looking as though he had been summoned to court for a crime committed by his watch. Jonathan Reed sat beside his attorney, Daniel Porter. Margaret Lane was off on the side of the room, pale but composed. Thomas Avery sat beside her. George Nolan stood near the bookshelves with his hands in his coat pockets. I had put an extra chair near the wall for myself. Wolfe had put no chair there. He had also ordered lunch. That was Wolfe's way of announcing that the conference would be lengthy. Fritz had prepared roast duck, buttered asparagus, a salad of bitter greens, and a pudding that Wolfe had described to me as a modest improvement upon ordinary human food. The orchids beyond the glass doors were in full morning bloom. Outside, New York was doing what New York does best on a Sunday morning. Trucks growled. Taxis argued with pedestrians. Somewhere below the brownstone, a deliveryman shouted at another deliveryman with the confidence of a man who had never been wrong in his life. Wolfe looked at the assembled group. Mr. Kramer grunted. Mr. Reed, Mr. Porter, Mr. Bell, Miss Lane, Mr. Avery, Mr. Nolan. Nolan said yes. Wolfe's eyes rested on him for a moment. Then he looked at me. Archie. Yes. Close the door. I did. The latch clicked. Wolfe settled deeper into his chair. Now we can discuss the appointment, Kramer said. I thought we were discussing a theft. We are. The ledger? Yes. Then let's discuss the ledger. Wolfe shook his head. No. Kramer stared at him. We will discuss the appointment. Why? Because the ledger was not the beginning. I leaned against the desk. It wasn't even the first thing stolen. No, then what was? Wolfe looked at the appointment card lying on his desk. 40 minutes. Nobody spoke. Kramer frowned. You can't steal 40 minutes. No? Wolfe's expression was faintly amused. You can if everyone remembers them differently. That was Wolfe's opening, and it was a good one. He picked up the appointment card. This card was genuine. Arthur Bell nodded. I told you, yes, Mr. Bell. The handwriting is Mr. Reed's. Yes. The appointment was for noon. Reed shifted in his chair. It was. Wolfe turned the card over. Originally. Reed frowned. What do you mean? The time was altered. By whom? Not by you. Reed looked at Margaret. She lowered her eyes. Wolfe continued. The original time was noon. Someone altered the card so that Mr. Bell would read 11:20. Bell said, I knew it. Kramer said, you knew what? That someone had changed it. Wolfe nodded. You suspected correctly. Bell looked relieved. Thank God. Wolfe's eyes moved to him. Do not thank God. You were exactly where the criminal needed you. Bell's relief disappeared. What? Wolfe placed the card down. You were not a mistake, Mr. Bell. I don't understand. That is because the plan depended upon your not understanding. Bell looked at me. I gave him a sympathetic shrug. It did not help. Wolfe said, you were supposed to arrive at 11:20. Yes. You were supposed to believe that Mr. Reed had summoned you. Yes. You were supposed to carry the envelope. Yes. You were supposed to insist upon seeing Mr. Reed. Yes. And when Miss Lane told you there was no 11:20 appointment, you were supposed to object. Bell stared. I did. Exactly. Kramer leaned forward. You arranged the whole thing? Wolfe shook his head. No. He looked at Nolan. Someone else did. Nolan did not move. Wolfe opened a file. The crime had 4 necessary components. He raised one finger. First, Mr. Bell had to be brought to the office early. A second finger. Second, the office staff had to believe that his arrival was the result of an appointment discrepancy. A third, the records room had to become temporarily unobserved. A fourth, the original Harcourt ledger had to disappear without anyone immediately realizing it. Kramer said, and the replacement. Yes, the duplicate ledger. Yes, who made it? Wolfe looked at Margaret. Miss Lane. She nodded. Kramer looked at her. You replaced the ledger? Yes. Why? Because I was told it was necessary. By Nolan? Yes. Nolan said she is lying. Wolfe looked at him. No. Nolan's jaw tightened. She was frightened? Yes. She did what she was told. Yes. So she is responsible. Partly. Nolan smiled bitterly. Partly. Wolfe nodded. She committed an act. You designed the circumstances that made her commit it. Then we're talking about conspiracy. Yes. Who else? Wolfe looked at Avery. Mr. Avery. Avery did not protest. That was important, Wolfe said. Mr. Avery did not enter the records room. Avery looked at Kramer. Thank you. Do not thank me, Wolfe said. You helped create the opportunity. Avery's face hardened. I never touched the ledger. No, I never stole it. No, I never replaced it. No, I only provided information. Precisely. What information? Wolfe's voice was quiet. The information without which the scheme would have been impossible. Avery said nothing. Wolfe looked at Kramer. Mr. Avery knew the Harcourt transfer had never been cancelled. He knew the ledger contained the proof. He knew where the ledger was kept. He knew that Reed had been warned about the transfer. And he knew enough about the office routine to know that the records room could be reached during the confusion surrounding Mr. Bell, Kramer said. That makes him an accomplice. Yes, Avery looked at Wolfe. And Nolan? Wolfe smiled. Mr. Nolan was more ambitious. George Nolan had been silent throughout the explanation. He now said, You're making a great deal out of a missing book. Wolfe turned his head. Yes, it was an old ledger. Yes, it contained accounting entries. Yes, nothing more. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Nothing more? Nolan shrugged. The transfer was old, fraudulent, disputed fraudulent. That's your opinion. No. Wolfe picked up the enlarged page. It is the opinion of the evidence. Nolan looked at it. The transfer was signed. Yes, yes. Reed, yes. Avery, yes. And Bell, yes. Nolan frowned. Bell? Bell looked startled. What? Wolfe turned to him. You signed the acknowledgement. I did? Yes. Wes. 30 years ago. Bell looked at Reed. I don't remember. You were 27. I've signed hundreds of things. That one mattered. Bell stared at the page. I don't understand. You will. Wolfe turned back to Nolan. The fourth transfer transferred control of the Harcourt property under conditions that were never fulfilled. Nolan said, that is disputed. No. By whom? By Mr. Reed's lawyer. Porter spoke for the first time. By me. Nolan looked at him. Porter said, the transfer was conditional upon a payment that was never made. That is not what the ledger says. It is what the original memorandum says. Nolan smiled. And where is that memorandum? Porter looked at Wolfe. Here. He placed a folded paper on Wolfe's desk. Nolan's smile vanished. I looked at Wolfe. He had known. Of course he had known. Wolfe unfolded the memorandum. The transfer was conditional. He looked at Nolan. Yet someone later represented it as absolute. Nolan said nothing. That someone used the Harcourt property as collateral, still nothing, and then attempted to acquire the property outright. Nolan's face remained blank. Kramer said, who? Wolfe looked at him. That is why the ledger disappeared. I had expected Wolfe to name Nolan immediately. He did not. Instead he said, the crime was not committed to conceal the theft. Kramer frowned. Then what was the theft for? To conceal the ownership, I said. Meaning the ledger was evidence. Yes. The culprit wanted to destroy or control it. Yes, because it proved the transfer was conditional. Yes. And if the ledger disappeared, the fraudulent ownership claim became harder to challenge. Correct. Kramer looked at Nolan. That points directly at you. Nolan said. No. Smile. Not yet. Nolan looked annoyed. You have no proof. I have more than proof. What? A sequence, Kramer muttered. Here we go. Wolfe ignored him. Let us return to Friday morning, Wolfe said. At 10:17, a copying order was placed. The partnership agreement? Yes. The customer asked for 3 copies. Kramer said. Nolan? Not necessarily. The agreement contained the 4th transfer. Yes. Why copy it to establish what the ledger would later prove? I said. So whoever copied it knew the ledger mattered. Yes. Then at 10:41, the ledger page was brought to the copying shop. Yes. The person who brought it did not want a copy at first. Correct. Why? Because the first document was enough to identify the relevant ledger. I looked at Avery. He shifted. Wolfe noticed. The ledger page was brought later because the person wanted to compare the wording. Kramer said, compare it with what? The partnership agreement. To prove they matched? No, to prove they differed. I understood. The old agreement and the ledger didn't say the same thing. Exactly. The agreement described a conditional transfer. Yes, the ledger showed how it had later been represented. Yes, which meant the discrepancy was the evidence. Correct. Wolfe placed the documents side by side. That discrepancy was the reason for the entire operation. Nolan said, you still haven't explained the 40 minutes. Wolfe looked at him. No, I'd like to hear that. I am about to explain it. Nolan leaned back. Wolfe said, at 10:47, Miss Lane altered the office calendar. Margaret nodded. She believed she was acting on an instruction from Mr. Reed. Yes. That instruction came through Mr. Nolan. Margaret nodded again. He told me Mr. Reed wanted Bell's meeting moved. Yes. Then at 11:10 you changed it back. Yes. Again on Nolan's instruction. Yes. Nolan said, she is lying. Wolfe said, no. Why would I do that? Because you needed the office to contain 2 contradictory records. What? The calendar would show 11:45. The card would show 11:20. And the actual appointment would remain noon. I said, 3 times. Kramer said, why? Because contradiction creates attention. And attention creates distraction. Yes, the staff would argue over the appointment. Exactly. Bell would argue exactly, and no one would ask why someone was in the records room. Nolan said, that's absurd. Wolfe looked at him. Is it? Nolan did not answer. Wolfe picked up the anonymous invitation. The invitation was carefully designed. Bell said, it sounded like Reed, because it used information only someone close to Reed could know. You were told to arrive at 11:20. Yes. Not 11, yes. Not 11:30, yes. 11:20, correct. Wolfe looked at Kramer. Why 20? Kramer said. Because the culprit wanted him 40 minutes early. Exactly. But why 40? Because 40 minutes was the period during which Reed's office could be manipulated without the normal staff noticing. Explain. Reed had temporarily left his office. Yes. The records room was at the rear. Yes. The corridor could be observed from the reception area. Yes. But when Bell arrived, everyone's attention moved toward him. Yes. And the argument took several minutes. Enough. How long? 8 minutes. Kramer frowned. 8? Bell entered at 11:20. The dispute over the appointment lasted until 11:28. How do you know? Because the telephone log records Margaret's next call at 11:29. Kramer nodded. That gives the thief 8 minutes. Yes, enough to remove a ledger. More than enough. Then why 40 minutes? Because the culprit did not know exactly how long he would need. Wolfe looked at Nolan. He needed the whole interval to remain plausible. I said, the 40 minutes were not the theft. No, they were the cover for the theft. Yes, the theft could have taken 8 minutes, yes, but the story needed 40.
Exactly.
Wolfe turned to Bell. Mr. Bell, yes? You have been troubled because you believed your early arrival caused the problem, yes? It did. Bell looked startled. But not because you were careless. Then why? Because the criminal needed you to be exactly as you were. Confused? Confused, angry, insistent, very. Bell gave a weak smile. I suppose I was. You were perfect, thank you. It was not a compliment. Bell's smile disappeared. I laughed. Even Kramer almost smiled. Wolfe continued. Your presence caused Margaret to leave her desk, yes. It caused Nolan to appear concerned, yes. It caused Avery to make a telephone call. Avery looked up. What? Wolfe said. At 11:22. Avery stared. I did not. You did. To whom? To Mr. Nolan. Avery said nothing. Kramer turned toward him. You told us you didn't call anyone. I forgot. Wolfe said no. Avery looked at him. You remembered. Then why? Because you needed to know whether the records room was clear. Avery's face tightened. That's not true. Wolfe reached for the telephone log. Your extension was used. Avery stared at it. The evidence was small, but it was enough. Wolfe now looked at Nolan. The ledger was removed. Nolan said nothing. It was replaced. Nothing. The original was taken to the 4th drawer. Kramer said, you found it? Wolfe nodded. Yes. Kramer straightened. Where? In Reed's records cabinet. Kramer stared. Then it wasn't stolen. Not exactly. I smiled. Of course. Wolfe looked at me. The drawer Bell was supposed to open contained the original ledger. Kramer said. And the duplicate. In the cabinet. Why put the original in another drawer? Because the culprit intended to return for it. Then why didn't he? Because we interrupted the plan, Nolan said. I never intended to take it. Wolfe looked at him. No. You just said I did. I said you arranged for it to be taken. By whom? Wolfe's eyes moved to Margaret. She looked at the floor. She put the duplicate in the cabinet. Yes. You told her the original was to be placed in the 4th drawer. Yes. Why? Because you intended to retrieve it later. No. Then why? Nolan said nothing. Wolfe waited. Finally Nolan said to keep it safe. Kramer laughed once. Safe from whom? Nolan looked at him. From Reed. Reed said you stole my property. No. You removed a business record from my office to protect you. From what? The truth. Wolfe said, there it is. The room became very quiet. Wolfe leaned back. The truth was dangerous to several people. He looked at Reed. It showed that the Harcourt transfer had been conditional. At Bell. It showed that you had signed the original agreement. At Avery. It showed that you knew about the later accounting. At Margaret. It showed that you had access to the records. And finally at Nolan. It showed that you had used the false transfer to build a claim against the property. Nolan said, I didn't. Porter spoke. You did. Nolan turned. Porter continued. I have the subsequent mortgage. Nolan's face changed. That document is not valid. It doesn't need to be valid to prove intent. Wolfe nodded. Exactly, Kramer said. So Nolan's plan was to steal the ledger, not merely steal it. Use it, control it. How? By removing the original and replacing it with a harmless duplicate. And then, later, the original could be destroyed. Nolan said no. Wolfe continued as if he had not spoken. Or altered. No. Or produced selectively in support of a false claim. Nolan stood. Kramer rose. 2. Sit down. Nolan sat. Wolfe's voice remained mild. The reason the ledger was not destroyed immediately was that Nolan needed time. For what? To complete the property claim. Kramer looked at Porter. Can you prove that? Porter nodded. Yes, he produced another document. A filing was prepared Friday afternoon. Kramer took it. By whom? Nolan's attorney. Kramer read it, then looked at Nolan. You were preparing to claim the Harcourt property. Nolan said nothing. Wolfe said the missing ledger was the last obstacle. I said, then where does Avery fit? Wolfe looked at him. Mr. Avery knew about the discrepancy. Avery said, I didn't know Nolan would use it. You knew he wanted the ledger? Yes. You helped him identify it? Yes. You helped arrange the copying? Yes. You knew Bell would be brought early? Avery hesitated. Yes. You did not know exactly why? No. You suspected it? Yes. That is why you were the lookout? Avery looked down. Yes, Kramer said. And Margaret? Wolfe said she was the instrument. Margaret looked at him. I didn't know about the property claim. I believe you. I thought the ledger was being protected. I know. Then why am I here? Because your action completed the mechanism. She nodded. I understand, Kramer said. And Bell? Wolfe smiled. Mr. Bell was innocent. Bell exhaled. Thank you, but necessary. Bell looked uncertain. Necessary? Yes. Why? Wolfe pointed to the appointment card. Because without you, there would have been no 40 minutes. Kramer looked at Wolfe. Let's hear it from the beginning. Wolfe nodded. He had been waiting for that. He folded his hands. The original appointment was noon. Reed nodded. Mr. Bell knew that. Yes. Someone obtained access to Mr. Reed's appointment card. The culprit. Yes. The time was altered to 11:20. Yes. An anonymous instruction was delivered to Mr. Bell. Yes. He believed it, naturally, because the handwriting was genuine. Yes. Mr. Reed had actually written the original appointment. Yes. The criminal changed only the time. Yes. Mr. Bell arrived at 11:20. Yes. Meanwhile, Nolan arranged for the office calendar to show 11:45. Nolan remained silent. That meant Margaret believed the appointment was at 11:45. Yes. Bell believed it was at 11:20. Yes. Reed believed it was at noon. Yes. 3 truths. Wolfe paused. All contradictory, Kramer said, and that caused the confusion. Yes. Bell argued. Yes. Margaret dealt with him. Yes. Nolan watched. Yes. Avery watched Nolan. Yes. And Margaret eventually entered the records room. Yes. She removed the original ledger. Yes. She replaced it with a duplicate. Yes. Then she put the original in the 4th drawer. Yes. Why the 4th drawer? Wolfe looked at Nolan. Because Nolan believed Bell would eventually open it. Kramer frowned. Why would Bell open it? Because the envelope was supposed to lead him there. I said, the envelope. Wolfe nodded. The old partnership agreement inside it contained enough information to make Bell search the records. But Bell never did, because Wolfe stopped the plan. Kramer looked at me. And the envelope. Still bait. Wolfe continued. The envelope was not intended to deliver information. It was intended to create behavior. Yes. Bell was supposed to bring it into the office. Yes. Then someone would direct him toward the records cabinet. Yes. He would open the wrong drawer. Yes. And the discovery of the ledger would look like Bell had tampered with the records. Exactly. Bell stared. I was going to be blamed. Yes. Bell looked sick. Wolfe nodded. The final stage of the plan was to make you the thief. Kramer looked at Nolan. That's why you needed Bell. Nolan did not answer. Not just as a distraction, no. As a scapegoat, yes. Wolfe nodded. The criminal did not need Mr. Bell to lie. He paused. He needed Mr. Bell to tell the truth. Bell looked at him. Everything I said was true. Yes. I really received the card. Yes. I really believed Reed sent me. Yes. I really arrived at 11:20. Yes. I really argued with Margaret. Yes. And that was enough. More than enough, Kramer said, because every truthful statement pointed in the wrong direction. Exactly. Wolfe looked at me. Archie, yes? What is the most useful witness? The innocent one. Why? Because nobody thinks to question the shape of his truth. Wolfe nodded. Good. I was beginning to feel that perhaps I had learned something after all. Kramer stood. Where is the original ledger now? Wolfe pointed to the desk drawer. The fourth drawer. Kramer opened it. The ledger was there. Old, heavy, dusty. Its binding was cracked. Kramer lifted it, the duplicate, in the cabinet. Kramer examined both. The original has 73 numbered pages. Yes, the duplicate has 74.
Yes.
Because of the missing index. Yes. Kramer looked at Nolan. That's enough for me, Nolan said. You don't have the property. Kramer looked at Porter. Porter said the property claim can be challenged. Kramer looked at Wolfe. And the fraud? Wolfe nodded. The evidence is sufficient. Kramer put the ledger under his arm. Then he looked at Wolfe. You could have told me this yesterday. Yes. Why didn't you? I had not finished. You enjoy making me wait. No, you're lying. Possibly, Kramer grunted. Then he turned to Nolan. You're coming with me. Nolan rose. At the door he stopped. He looked back at Wolfe. You think you solved everything? Wolfe said nothing. Nolan smiled faintly. You don't know who first planned the transfer. Wolfe's expression did not change. I know. Nolan's smile vanished. How? The ledger. What about it? The original page has your initials beside the transfer. Nolan stared. My initials? Yes. They weren't there. Wolfe looked at him. They were. Nolan's face became blank. Kramer opened the door. Come on. Nolan left. Avery followed with Kramer. Margaret remained. Reed remained. Bell remained. Porter remained. Wolfe looked at them. The case is finished. Margaret said softly, Am I under arrest? Kramer from the hallway said not yet. She nodded. Reed stood. He looked older than he had that morning. I owe you an apology, Mr. Wolfe. No. I doubted the whole thing. Naturally, I thought Bell had made a mistake. Most people would. I never imagined 40 minutes could matter so much. Wolfe's eyes moved to the appointment card. Time always matters. Reed nodded. Then he left with Porter. Bell lingered. Mr. Wolfe. Yes, one thing. What? Why'd you become interested in the audience? I looked at Wolfe. That was a reference to the old observation I had made when the case began. Wolfe said, because the reactions were too precise. Bell frowned. I don't understand. The criminal expected people to behave in particular ways. Like me, yes. Then the early arrival was not an accident. No, it was the whole point. Wolfe nodded. The most carefully calculated event in the case. Bell shook his head. I still don't understand how someone could plan that much around 40 minutes. Wolfe's expression softened by a fraction. He did not plan around 40 minutes. Bell waited. He planned around people. Bell left. When the door closed, I went to the window. The city was bright now. Cars moved along the street. A boy on a bicycle nearly collided with a taxi. Two women stood outside a bakery arguing over a paper bag. Somewhere farther downtown, a siren began and faded. Behind me, Wolfe was eating. I turned. You're having lunch? Yes. We just finished the biggest explanation of the case. That is why I am eating. Fritz's duck? Yes, after all that, especially after all that. I sat opposite him. Let's see if I've got it. Wolfe took a bite. The appointment was originally noon. Yes. The time on Bell's card was altered to 11:20. Yes. The invitation was false. Yes. The calendar was altered to 11:45. Yes. Bell arrived at 11:20. Yes. He argued with Margaret. Yes. The argument drew attention away from the records room. Yes. Margaret removed the original ledger and replaced it. Yes. Avery helped provide information. Nolan organized the operation. Yes. The original ledger went into the fourth drawer. Yes. The envelope was supposed to make Bell open that drawer. Yes. And then Bell would be blamed. Yes. I paused. And the clock? The clock exposed Nolan, because he knew when it had been corrected. Yes. And only someone inside during the 40-minute window could know that. Correct. I leaned back. That's pretty good. Wolfe looked offended. It is correct. Same thing, no. Fine. I reached for a piece of asparagus. Wolfe slapped my hand away. That is mine. You've got 23, 24. You counted? Of course. I looked at him. You know, there's one thing I still don't understand. What? Why did Nolan think the fourth drawer would be opened? Wolfe looked at me. Because the envelope contained a reference to it. I stared. It did? Yes. I reached for the envelope. Wolfe handed it over. I read the agreement again. There, buried in an old clause, was a reference to the filing sequence. Fourth drawer, property transfers, final record. I looked up. He planned the whole thing. Yes. He knew Belle would read it. Yes. He knew Belle would become curious. Yes. He knew Belle would be sent to the records. Yes. And he knew that, when the ledger was discovered, Belle would be the obvious suspect. I shook my head. That is cold, effective. You really admire the planning. I admire nothing about criminals. You admire the mechanism. Mechanisms are neutral. I smiled. Of course, Wolfe returned to his duck. I watched him for a moment. Then I said, so the early arrival was the most carefully calculated? Yes. Not the theft. No. Not the forged card. No. Not the duplicate ledger. No, the early arrival. Yes. Because everything depended on Belle being there at 11:20. Correct. And if he had arrived at noon, the plan would have failed. If he'd arrived at 11:15, it would have failed. If he'd called Reed, it would have failed. If he'd simply accepted Margaret's explanation and left, it would have failed. I smiled. So the criminal needed him to behave exactly as he did. Yes. I looked at the appointment card again. 40 minutes. A small interval. Almost nothing. Yet the entire operation had been built around it. Wolfe had once told me that time was merely a method by which human beings agreed upon the order of events. In this case, someone had attempted to make the order of events into a weapon. He had failed because he forgot one thing. People remember clocks. They remember appointments. They remember where they were supposed to be. But they do not always remember that someone may have arranged the clock before they arrived. I said, you know, Wolfe, there was a time when I thought Belle had simply made a mistake. Wolfe continued eating. He did. I looked at him. What? He made one mistake. What? He trusted the appointment, I laughed. That's all. That was enough. He took a sip of coffee. Then he closed his eyes. I thought the matter was over. But after a moment he said, Archie, yes? The appointment was at noon. I know. The crime depended upon everyone believing it was not. I nodded. And yet, he added, the truth remained where it had always been. Where? He opened his eyes. At noon. I looked at him. That was Wolfe's final word on the case. The rest belonged to Kramer, the courts, the documents, and the old property records. For my part, I had learned something simpler. A man can arrive 40 minutes too soon and still be exactly on time for a crime. And in Nero Wolfe's world, that was often the difference between a mistake and a murderer's plan.